from marginally quicker to significantly quicker with what we just saw from Canada.
Next team's getting themselves ready to come onto the start line. And we have the two Chinese teams racing against each other now. China A versus China B. So in the Nations Cups, the countries are able to enter a second team as a trade team. We Australians had two teams in both men's and women's team pursuits earlier this morning, and some respectful rides actually from the B teams for Australia. And we'll see how China goes. A versus B, some bragging rights on offer here between these two teams.
Certainly, and in the past they would have ridden in different skin suits, but they're no longer required to do that. So both teams will look the same. In the front straight, calling themselves China A, we have Li Yang Wang, we have Yu Fangao and Shanju Bao. In the back straight, representing China, China B, we have Xu Yan Lao, Fei Zhu, and Men Kui Tong.
Second fastest team this morning, China A in the front straight. 47.403, slightly slower than what New Zealand just posted here in the first round. So we do expect these top-ranked teams to progress a little bit and get a little bit more out of themselves in these next rounds. And they have had a change. One rider changed in the China A team. And Yingli Wang gets them underway. It was Yulu Jiang that we rode in the qualifying. She has been replaced by Yang. And they are now up to full speed down the back straight. Maximum effort. Each one of these riders putting in a complete maximum effort to try and get the best possible time over 3 laps of this track, and on to rider number 2 for both teams.
Yes, China A going through with a slight margin there. China A has actually ridden a 46.679 at the World Championships last year, nearly a full second than what they qualified this morning, so we know they have left in the tank.
And they have a comfortable margin here. Second fastest qualifiers versus the 7th fastest. So this is absolutely going to form with a quarter of a lap to go. And China A will come around to win this particular round. And in a time of 46.277. So a big improvement.
That's a blistering time. That is faster than what they qualified in at the World Championships last year when they were in 3rd. So that is absolutely sensational time.
47.4 in qualifying and a 46.2 here in the first round. So that's an extraordinary improvement with that one rider change as well. It's not always just that one rider, but they've had a good run, a good hit out in the afternoon program, and they certainly have stepped up tonight.
It is. That's the fastest time a Chinese team has recorded in the last 2 years, which is a very good sign from them. They performed exceptionally well in Glasgow to bring home the bronze medal, and they beat Netherlands to do that, and that was a 46.543. So 0.3 of a second, 0.3 faster is a really significant improvement. It's great to see the depth in the Chinese teams, that they can ride at that speed consistently, but also have what they call the B team also posting very competitive times.
The fourth and final heat in round 1 for the women's team sprint. Great Britain versus Mexico. And with the disqualification of Germany this afternoon, we didn't get to see how fast they were going to go. They were the favourites, of course, being the current world champions. They've been so dominant in this discipline over the last couple of years, but it gives an opportunity to someone else now to step up and win the first Nations Cup here in Adelaide for 2024. Great Britain, Emma Finucane, the current world sprint champion. And they had Lauren Bell in the team this afternoon. She has been switched out with Katie Marchant, and Sophie Capewell will round the team out. So Finucane, Marchant and Capewell. And for Mexico, Yuli Verdugo, Jessica Salazar, and Daniela Gaggiola. And they're still getting themselves ready in the back straight. The British team ready to go, but Mexico haven't got their starters bike in the start gate just yet. So a little bit slow in the back straight to get ready.
Well, I did see that at the World Championships there are a few fines for this, for delaying the start of an event. So the athletes do need to be careful and respectful if there's no technical issue preventing them from being out on track. It is their responsibility. It's tough for the Brits sitting now in the front straight, just waiting.
Big favourites, though, that's for sure.
They were second at the World Championships with the trio that qualified this morning. As you mentioned, they've changed out Bell for Marchant. They rode a 45.923 at the World Championships last year, 46.610 in the qualifying this morning. We expect them to pick their speed up, but we're not expected to see a tight race between Great Britain and Mexico in this event this evening. Mexico qualifying in a 48.816, so 2.2 seconds shy of the British team.
You may have heard some crackling in the background. That was the electronic starter pistol. I was just making sure that was ready. It was used a couple of times this afternoon to signify false starts in the team sprints. Well, the team pursuits got underway okay, but there were a couple of false starts. That second or third rider, so desperate to get off the start as quickly as possible, and there were a couple of false starts. You are allowed one false start, two, and you are disqualified. So Great Britain, the fastest qualifiers, up against Mexico, the 8th quickest, winner only to progress. And Great Britain would certainly be hoping to be going into that race against. At the moment, it will be China A in the race for gold and silver, and we expect Great Britain to be coming up against them. Let's see what happens here, though. Fourth and final heat, round one, women's team sprint underway. Mexico in the back straight. The 8th fastest qualifiers up against the favourites here tonight. Great Britain, Finucane, Marchant and Capewell. And very quick and a very handy gap already. Half a second in the first half lap to complete the first lap, and the margin has gone even further out to over 1 second.
A very clean start by the British team. They are so neat, so aerodynamic. The form of the Mexican team also looking very good, but 1.19 seconds the lead is out to now for the British team.
And talking about aerodynamics, the sprinters absolutely tucked down now, elbows in, trying to minimise that frontal surface area as Great Britain come around the final bend. It will be the win here in this heat, and a 46.0, the fastest time recorded here today by the women in the team sprint. So the final tonight will be Great Britain up against China.
Sensational ride by the British team. They were second at the European Championships just a number of weeks ago in Apeldoorn in the Netherlands. And they rode 46.151 to achieve that with the same trio. They have just bettered their season best time now by over half a second. It's great signs.
They looked very smooth, very comfortable. That was a perfect ride by them.
Well, we've noticed the rise of Finucane over the years, Scott. We saw her when she first burst onto the sport, and she clearly had a lot of talent and acceleration, but it's taken a bit of time to finesse the skills and the position, and boy, is she a force now. When she gets on the track, you can really feel her presence, and she certainly has led the Great Britain team to a fantastic time tonight. They'll be riding off in the finals a bit later against China.
46.2 the time of China, Great Britain 46.09, so only 0.2 of a second between them. Great Britain certainly the favourites now with that 0.2 difference, but who knows, make a slight little error. It doesn't take much in team sprint, it's over so quickly, slight little bubble at the start and off you go, you could lose the race. So this will be a fantastic final between China A and Great Britain. New Zealand versus Poland, that'll be the race for the bronze medal, and it's even tighter between those two.
And well done to the Mexican team, 48.527. They improved their earlier qualifying time by 0.3 of a second, so they've rapidly improved as well. We have a bit of a form guide from the Europeans because of the European Championships in Apeldoorn, which was a very big opportunity for teams to earn a lot of points to qualify for the Olympic Games for their nation. But we have less of a gauge for the Pan-American nations or the Oceania nations. on track form. So we're looking back at the times that they rode at the World Championships as their season guide, but more updated for the Europeans, of course.
Men's elimination race coming onto the track now. This is not a standalone event at the Olympic Games, but the elimination is certainly one of the disciplines in amongst the 4-discipline Omnium series. So a lot of these riders also part of their Omnium plan for the Olympic Games, and this is the type of race you really do want to do it often to get the skills to be able to be consistent, and that's what is so important when it comes to the Omnium event as well. We don't have the Omnium on tonight, we'll see that in the next couple of days, but that is also an Olympic event. So
it's a modern addition to the UCI program, the Elimination. Traditionally in Australia, it's been an event that we've raced at the carnivals, and it's always been a very popular event. It's always been a very hard-fought event. And when it was brought into the Omnium originally, it really brought back the passion and the excitement, especially for the fans in watching the Elimination. And so it's fantastic to see it as a standalone event now, and the athletes take it very seriously. There's a lot of different tactics you can use in an elimination race, but regardless of the tactic, you have to be a fairly tough rider. You have to be very able to position yourself well in the bunch, and you have to have a bit of a steely attitude to it, Scott, because there's a little bit of pushing and shoving that goes on to make sure they can get into the right position.
Absolutely. And we don't have the current world champion. That was Ethan Vernon, who won in Glasgow last year. But we have the silver medalist in Dylan Bibick. And he also won the scratch race the year before that as a 19-year-old. So it's just the ability of the Canadian that's sitting right up here at the top of the track. Rider from Switzerland is Lucas Rug. And Morgan Kineski is the coach or the manager / coach of the Swiss team, but he is a multiple world champion as a Frenchman, looking after the Swiss this year, and only recently stepped off the bike himself, but a great asset for the Swiss team to have a rider like Morgan Kineski helping them out.
And it's sensational to see some of the talents of the past now mentoring and leading, coaching the athletes of the present.
Kusuma was the rider from India that we just saw, and riders are underway. They will have a couple of neutral laps, and this is, if you haven't seen an elimination before, get yourselves ready, strap in, because this is a sensational race. It's the one race where you don't look towards the front of the peloton, you look to the back. So once they do get the signal that the race is underway, every second time across the line, the last rider in the peloton is eliminated.
Let's be clear, the riders need to look to the front, the fans get to look at the back and see who it will be. So from the very get-go, from the start gun, the riders must race. There is no jockeying for position. There is no cat and mouse. They've received the bell now, so they will come around and the first rider will be eliminated on the next lap. So the rider whose front wheel is the furthest back will be that rider.
So we look for the very, very back end of the bicycle, and we see here, and it's Martin Schrenn is the first rider eliminated. Such a tactical event. You have to be strong to ride good position at the front, but you also have to be very tactically astute and not scared. You've got to get your elbows out sometimes to force some position in this one. And it's Van den Hout from Belgium that's in a dangerous position, just coming up around the outside. Underneath him is Kusuma from India, who will be the rider last across the line.
It can be quite dangerous to sit too far toward the back, especially up the track, because as they really increase the speed at the bottom and at the bottom of the track, at the front of the bunch, it's like an elastic band at the back, but it is constant. One rider out, and now they have the bell for another lap for the next rider, and the Belgian rider is the one on the chopping block.
Milan van den Hout again in the dangerous position, and don't think he got enough around the outside then, so we are focusing on him, as I think the cameras have picked up that it may be him, but we'll wait for official confirmation. Oh, number 30, Claudio Imhoff from well, from Switzerland, riding for a trade team here, actually. But so Claudio Imhoff, he'll be disappointed with that. He's a strong rider, Claudio.
He is. He's got a very good pedigree, but it looks to me like Vandenhout was very lucky. Ooh,
That was tight.
that was tight again between the Belgian Vandenhout. But it looks like it's been rider 49, Terry Kasuma.
And now the laps are coming around quickly. Next rider gone. Kasuma was the last one eliminated. Vandenhout has been in the dangerous zone all the time.
George Nemolostovas from Latvia has been near the back every lap. He's just moving himself up. I think now we have seen the Belgian rider. But no, the Latvian, there we go. He was underneath. He was trying to sneak in down the bottom to move his way up, but it did not happen. I feel as though Vandenhout from Belgium, he is really buying his time here. He needs to move up or he won't be able to stay out of danger much longer.
Wozniak from Poland trying to fight to stay in the race, but it is Milan Vandenhout. We've seen him dodging the elimination a couple of times, and now eventually all the effort to try and come around the outside every 2 laps has finally come back to bite him. No more energy left. At the front of the race, though, we have Grant Kuntz from USA. Haven't spoken of Dylan Bibick just yet, the Canadian, so he's hiding himself there in 3rd position, riding very well, the silver medalist from the World Championships. Ramas from Kazakhstan trying to get up around the outside now and out of the saddle trying to finish it off, and he will be the next one to go.
That is Ramas Dinmukamentov from Kazakhstan has been eliminated, and we are now down to only 8 riders. The Australian Blake Agneletto has moved up significantly in position.
And we look down to the inside of the track to see who might get boxed in here. Denis Rugovac is trying to come up around the outside. And when you're down below with nowhere to go, you've got to be very careful to try not to push through on the blue band on the inside. You will get relegated if you do that. And Lukas Rug from Switzerland has gone.
The most dangerous spot in the bunch is in the middle. When you're up the top, you can sometimes get a bit of a run off the bank to get in, but we've seen a number of riders fall to that. 7 riders left, another bell.
Kuntz.
And it's Grant Kuntz, the USA rider, who is having to rapidly move up position, and he's able to do so. The Polish rider, Wozniak, finding himself in the hot seat.
Ritzinger on the bottom of the track in danger as well, so he was there the last time through as well. So 47, Felix Ritzinger from Austria is the next one to go. He was the last 2 eliminations right down the very bottom. Nowhere to go. Now he finally, you could see the confusion there. He wasn't sure if he was out. Now finally he understands that he is the rider eliminated. Blake Agneletto, the boy from Bendigo, on the front for Australia. Kuntz from USA up around the outside once more. And Denis Rugovac on the inside in a really dangerous position. So Rugovac comes through last across the line. And number 9 is out.
We're down to 5 riders now. And the young Australian has really started to increase the pace. He's riding with a lot more antagonism than he did to start, Scott. It's a good tactic.
Well, we haven't mentioned Michele Scartazzini much, the Italian, so he's been hiding in there doing well, but he's in a bit of danger now. If Kuntz comes up around the outside and boxes him in, as he has, 4 wide with Scartazzini trying to find a way through on the inside. He has got through, but that might be a dangerous thing to do. He went through on the blue band, so he may be eliminated for going off the track service. No, they've taken out Wozniak.
We will have to see on a replay what that looks like, but it is a dangerous move to go under the inside, and they do need to be very cautious. But he was out of options. He was either eliminated or he was going to try his luck. He did. Grant Kuntz, the USA rider, is now the one going to have to pull a Hail Mary over the top.
Scartazzini on the inside, looking over his shoulder. This time he's eliminated. So a big effort to go around the outside for Scartazzini, and eliminated this time. Down to 3. Dylan Bibick, the silver medalist from the World Championships. Grant Kuntz from the USA and Blake Agneletto from Australia. So the Canadian in 2nd position. Agneletto from Australia on the fronts, and Kuntz from the USA at the back. So Bibic has been the one we've seen the least of. We haven't spoken much about him. He's ridden a brilliant race thus far.
And this is where the tactics do change with 3. It can become a little bit more cat and mouse. We just saw that. The front is the safest place to be. Grant Kuntz, the USA rider, number 44, he is eliminated. We are down to 2. The world champion, Bibic from Canada, Blake Agnoletto, the youngster from Australia, and it's a match sprint.
2 up sprint now, and diving down the inside, we saw Bibic trying to get underneath Agnoletto, but Blake Agnoletto is a very fast rider. He's the Australian Madison champion, but look at Bibic. Dylan Bibic, the world scratch race champion from a couple of years ago, silver medalist in this event last year in Glasgow, and comes away with the win here in Adelaide. The elimination win goes to Dylan Bibic from Canada, ahead of Blake Agnoletto.
Oh, sensational ride by the Canadian, and he looks pretty comfortable in doing it. Tactically, he just really knows how to ride an elimination. He's coming along exceptionally well. He's known as a great bunch racer, the scratch race and the points race, great Omnium rider, and now his first gold medal Nations Cup in the elimination. Fantastic event to add to the program.
He burst onto the scene when he won the Scratch Race World Championship a couple of years ago as a 19-year-old. And look at this earlier on, 4 wide with Scartazzini nowhere to go. Now, that's where Scartazzini survived, but he did cross the line on the blue band. So I think he was lucky there to go an extra bit further than maybe he was hoping to. That was close as well. Agnoletto just diving down to cover the move of Bibic.
He did what he could to try and beat the Canadian, but that was, in the end, quite an easy victory. He had a lot of control in that race. We didn't speak about him a lot because he didn't pop his head up. That is a perfect way to ride an elimination. You're not on the front, you're not on the back, you stay out of trouble. We'll see the women's elimination later on tonight. And I have a feeling they would have been watching that quite closely.
Well, Glenn O'Shea, the coach holding the bike from Bendigo. Blake Agnoletto, the young rider, the young steed being looked after by Glenn, also now from Bendigo. So Bendigo connection, doing well. But Dylan Bibic, the best in the men's elimination, and he's been consistently right up there in those bunch races over the last couple of seasons. So no surprise to see the young Canadian flying the flag. We see the start gate coming onto the track, and that signifies the next event, which is the men's team sprint first round. And the fastest qualifiers this morning were Australia, silver medalists from the World Championships last year, but the world champions from 2 years ago. And the defending, or the current world champions of the Netherlands, not here racing this particular Nations Cup. They will be doing Hong Kong and in Milton in Canada, deciding not to come down under, so that creates an opportunity for Australia to perhaps get the win here on home soil.
They were the fastest team this morning in the qualifying, 42.444 they rode. The next fastest time was ridden by Japan, and that was 43.103, so quite a significant advantage for the Australian team in the qualifying. China has 2 teams again in the men's team sprint, similar to what they had in the women's team sprint. And our first round will see China A up against Germany. China A qualifying this morning in 43.272. Germany qualifying in 43.357. So a tight competition. With these rounds, it is always the first round where the competitors are the closest on qualifying.
No change in the formation here for both of these teams. Chuao Gao, Yu Zhu and Kui Li from China up against Lukas Spiegel, Nick Schroter and Max Dornbach for Germany. China on the home straight, the faster of the qualifiers. Germany back straight. Men's team sprint first round underway. China A versus Germany. Very tight in the qualifying round, so this will be really interesting. Second time out, the men's team sprints definitely always a little bit quicker in each round. And for now, though, it is China with a little bit of work to do. Germany, the fastest to get going.
Very different styles. China's first rider leading off with quite a lot of speed. Germany a little bit more tapered, even though they're faster. They've come through with the bell, and it remains Germany in front.
China really fighting back now, so 0.3 of a second down Germany. So they're the fastest to get going, but they have slowed at the end, and China A come through to get the win. 42.899. Bit of an upset there with Germany coming out fast, but then slowing towards the end. So China A were faster in qualifying, but it was so tight, you wouldn't put that down as a form guide, but certainly you would now because they made it pretty easy over the top of Germany.
They've gone significantly faster. 43.272 in the qualifying, 42.899 for the Chinese team in that first round. So they've really stepped it up a notch. Germany, more or less the same time as they qualified in this morning, but they did really dart out of the start gates. And with 1.5 laps left to run, they were still ahead. With 1 lap left to go, it changed quite significantly. We saw a very big difference in that 125 metres in that midsection.
Unfortunately for Germany, Max Dornbach, the third rider, not able to bring home what was a great start. Now Great Britain versus China B. So again, the Chinese with 2 teams, as we saw in the women's team sprint, bringing out a very strong squad here to Adelaide.
China B, they are in the back straight. We have Ji Hengjin, Sheng Zizu, and Ji Wu Li. In the front straight, we've got Great Britain, Ed Lau, Hamish Turnbull, and Jack Carlin. 43.167 for the British team, 43.449 for the Chinese team in qualifying this morning. The trend so far has been that the teams have improved their time, even a little bit to a lot, but each team that we've seen out here in the first round for the women and the men's has improved their time from this morning. The conditions much better in the velodrome here this evening. Quite hot for the spectators and the fans and the athletes, but makes for a fast track.
And for the commentators. It is a bit sweaty
for
here
the
in the
commentators.
velodrome. No one cares about us, though, because the race is not underway, because there has been a false start, and the Chinese first rider has not heard the false start. Oh, and he's still going. Hopefully he can pull up, because this is really going to be detrimental to him when he does realise. And as he's come into the back straight, he's caught the other team on the other side of the track, but he's done a complete lap max effort. That's going to hurt when he has to come straight back and line up again.
That's quite devastating and quite unusual. It is not unusual for an athlete to be in the zone, but it is quite unusual that on 2 occasions of the gun being double fired, that they have not noticed that.
And the false start itself was with the British team in the home straight. So the Brits had the false start. If they would do that again, they would be eliminated. However, the most detrimental situation there was for the start rider for the Chinese team. So let's just hope that he can get himself back to full speed again and recovered.
It's not unprecedented that they would put them to the back end of the first round and move some of the other teams up. But we'll wait to see if that's what decision the commissaires will make, or if they'll be straight back up on track. Certainly very difficult for the Chinese team if that's the case. And here we can see the false start ever so slightly. That is excellent refereeing, judging from the commissaires team. Eagle-eyed to pick that up.
Yes, unfortunately for the Chinese starter in particular, the rules will state that they will be back on the track immediately. So that's really unfortunate. Just checking down there with the officials, making sure that, we can see that the British bike is about to come back onto the track, which means the Chinese starter's bike will be put in the start gate in the back straight as well. And he'll be certainly breathing heavy as he gets on the track this time, having done a maximum effort. Really unfortunate. And it's surprising because they were firing the gun multiple times. It's an electronic pistol, maybe not as loud as a normal starter pistol, which actually the old school ones, you'd only get 2 shots at it anyway, so they wouldn't be able to reload it quickly enough. With the electronic pistol, they could keep firing it as they did, but he still wasn't listening.
It's a tough situation. Psychologically, it's a very tough situation, but physically, sprinters, the 1 lap is their real specialty.
Now, what they are doing here, you just saw Ed Lowe going back off the track because they have not put the Chinese bike into the start gate in the back straight yet. So the British team just deciding, calm the farm a little bit, just rest themselves a little bit, because it's going to take a while for China A to get themselves, or China B, sorry, to get themselves sorted in the back straight.
Well, they're getting some grace and some time to have a bit of recovery, which is certainly needed from the Chinese team. The tough situation is that the Chinese team executed perfectly, and it was an error by the British team on the front straight. They are given enough tolerance for 1 false start, 2, and they will be disqualified.
Would have been interesting to see what the first start lap was for the Chinese rider, just how well he was going. This is 3rd fastest versus 6th fastest from the qualifying. And look again, 2nd and 3rd riders almost simultaneously just jumping the start. So unfortunate for them.
Well, in the first round, in the qualifying round, pardon me, they had a very rapid start off the line, 17.499, which actually put them in 5th place. They ended up qualifying in 6th. So he is known as a good quick starter, but he will have to hopefully have 2 efforts in him, because now the time has come. They've had enough grace from the UCI. They are back out on the track. First, the Brits.
Ed Lowe it is that puts himself back into the bike for a second time. Blow the cobwebs out. For the British guys, they did just get rid of the nerves a little bit by having that first effort and a false start, but we know that it's been quite detrimental to the Chinese.
But it can add to the nerves as well, because we know that if they dare do it again, a moment hesitation, and they will get disqualified.
Jack Carlin comes to the top of the track, the Scotsman, proud Scot, ready to go, and he certainly has come on a long way in the last 4 or 5 years as well. So he'll be finishing the team off for Great Britain, and Lee for China B. Ed Lowe, slap of the thighs, ready to go again. Heat 2 first round, men's team sprints, and they are both underway. Let's see what China B can do, considering how difficult it is to come straight back onto the track and do a max effort for a second time. They are behind, 0.4 of a second. Great Britain leading the way as Hamish Turnbull comes through for his second lap.
Well, the Brits are looking smooth. The Chinese team have certainly suffered from that mishap this earlier on. The Brits in control at this point, 8.86 seconds up.
Almost a second to the advantage there for Great Britain as Jack Carlin goes down the back straight in the tuck position. They want to get the win, but they want to make sure they get to race for gold or silver. There are 2 teams faster than Great Britain today in qualifying, but for now, 43.1. They get the win, Great Britain, over China B. And that's around about the same time as what they rode in qualifying. So this will be really interesting to see if they can be faster than either Japan or Australia and get themselves into the race for gold and silver.
Yeah, ever so slightly faster. Unfortunately, China B, they broke that trend. They're going half a second slower than they did in qualifying this morning. But I feel for the Chinese team, Scott. That's a really hard scenario to be in, and they'll certainly have to whiteboard that. And ensure that there's some procedures in place should that happen again.
So 2nd fastest winning time for Great Britain behind China A, so 42.899 for China A. Great Britain with the 43.11. And we still have 2 heats to come with the 2 fastest qualifiers in Australia and Japan. So if it's going to form, Great Britain may be racing for the bronze medal. We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. These are the 2nd fastest qualifiers now. The Asian Continental Champions, Japan, in the front straight up against Poland. 43.1 in qualifying. So around about the same time as what we just saw Great Britain ride just now, is what the Japanese were doing in the afternoon program. And Poland, 43.8. So significantly slower. Japan is the team we expect to come away with the win here. But as we've seen already, so much can happen in such a short amount of time.
Well, their season best is 42.948 for the Japanese team. So they're not too far off. They could come very close to beating that tonight, given the conditions out on track are much better. The 43.824 from the Polish team is very similar to what they rode at the World Championships last year. So we may be seeing a significant season best for them out here tonight as well.
Zarnecki getting them underway for Rockner and then Rudik. And for Japan, Nagasako, Kaya Ota and Yuta Obara will be finishing it off. Benoit Vertu, coach of the Japanese program, in the second, holding up the second rider. And we also saw Jason Niblett, one of the coaches, the Australian from Horsham in Australia, just tending to Nagasako's pedals right before the start. Penultimate heat here, round one, men's team sprint. And Japan, the favoured of these two teams. Poland in the back straight, and a good start by the Asian continental champions as they go down the back straight. Slight advantage for them, finishing off the first lap, and it should be Japan slightly in front.
And as continental champions, they're in slightly different kit. That's what the stripes are. Off to a good start. Similar styles from both of the teams. They're a good gap, half a second ahead for the Japanese.
Obara comes through with a handy lead, 0.7 of a second, so they should be able to finish this one off with the win. The time, that's what becomes important now. They need to go faster than 42.899 to beat the Chinese team, and they have done that. So they are the fastest winners so far. They guaranteed themselves a spot in the race for gold and silver, with only one more race to come, and that's with the favourites. The fastest qualifiers, Australia, they are up next, but Japan, job well done.
Season best for them. They should be very pleased with that performance. It will put them in the gold medal ride-off. It'll also give them confidence. It was a very clean ride from the Japanese team. It was a very clean ride from the Polish team as well. Now, they came through with 43.420, so also significantly faster than their ride this morning. 0.4 of a second faster for the Polish team. Looking very neat, but it was not enough to beat the Japanese.
They look very good, very well trained, the Japanese squad, the Asian champions. And we mentioned the coaches, Benoit Vertu and Jason Niblett. They also had Anthony Peden up until recently also working with that program. So such accomplished and well-liked, good team management kind of personnel that they have involved with that program. They're doing such a good job. Czechia, the Czech Republic, up against Australia, the fastest qualifiers. And Czechia, they were 8th quickest with a 43.989 versus 42.444 with Australia. We have had a change from the start line-up in qualifying. So Matthew Glaetzer now coming in to replace Tom Cornish. Lee Hoffman, such an incredible first rider. Lee Hoffman gets them underway again. Matthew Richardson in second position. And with Cornish coming out, with Matthew Glaetzer coming in. And for Czechia, it's Buzalakev in the first position, Topinka in position number 2, and then Chechman will be finishing them off, position number 3 on the left-hand side of the screen.
The Australian team, 42.444, they rode this morning. They'll be looking to better that. Czechia, 43.989. The calm before the storm.
Final heat, men's team sprint underway. This is round one, and you can see the effort from the middleman, Matthew Richardson, to make sure that he doesn't lose out to the incredibly fast Lee Hoffman. 17.08 for the first lap in qualifying, and as he comes through this time, again the fastest lap, 17.2, a little bit slower off the start than they were in qualifying.
But he's delivered the next riders with such great speed. The Australians solid. They've increased their lead now to over a second.
Richardson, job done. Now Glaetzer to finish things off, and that familiar tuck position from the big, powerful South Australian, I should say, from Adelaide here on the home boards. He's ridden the track so many times, and a 42.329. They get the win. They've got the quickest time, and they will go into the race for gold and silver. So it will be Australia versus Japan racing for gold and silver. That's going to be a fascinating final later on in the program tonight.
Well, there'll be more than a second margin between the fastest time that the Australians have registered, which was just then in 42.329, and the Japanese 42.773. The Czech team there, 43.760. They can be pleased with that ride. That's a very solid ride from their team.
So Australia versus Japan, racing for gold and silver later on tonight, and it will be Great Britain versus China A. China A, the quicker of those two teams. So that'll be a fascinating final as well. Around about 0.2 of a second between China A and Great Britain. They'll be racing for the bronze. Good solid start from the silver medalists from the World Championships last year, Australia. There's confirmation, Japan versus Australia, China A versus Great Britain.
Well, on paper, it's ended. We'll come to the finals, as it will have from the world ranking from the World Championships in Glasgow last year. We've now moved on to the women's teams pursuit. And we've got the finals on. They rode both the qualifying and the first round this morning. And looking back here at the team sprint, a beautifully clean start from both teams. The acceleration, Scott.
Matthew Glaetzer, just that tuck position. So aerodynamic for a big, powerful man. Australia versus Canada, women's team pursuit. This is the race for the bronze medal. Australia has made a change with Sophie Edwards coming in to replace Maeve Plouffe. And Sophie joined by Chloe Moran, Alex Manley and Georgia Baker. And for Canada, it's Maggie Coles-Lister, Sarah Van Dam, Ariane Bonhomme and Fiona Magini.
Well, this is the third combination that the Australians have used in this competition. So they are testing out different combinations to see if they can maximise their time.
And we're underway. This is the race for the bronze medal, women's team pursuit, Australia versus Canada, two very accomplished nations throughout the last couple of decades at the Olympic Games and World Championships, and so many different combinations over those years.
Chloe Moran was the starter for the Australian team. Maggie Coles-Lister took them out of the gate for the Canadian. They're trending toward doing longer starts. Traditionally, a rider would do 3/4 of a lap or a lap and a quarter, but now they're trending toward doing 2 laps at once, and that's what we've seen from both teams here before they do make that first turn.
0.8 of a second was the difference between these two in the previous round. And we have seen that change with Maeve Plouffe coming out and Sophie Edwards coming in. Australia were the faster of these two squads, but we'll see if they change in formation. Gives them perhaps even a bigger advantage. 0.3 of a second now as they come around after 3 laps.
Well, the Australians struggled in the first round with their combination. The time doesn't necessarily reflect what happened out on track, where there are a few gaps that opened up. Canada were very neat. They've had exceptionally good form so far in this competition, slightly down to the Australians though.
0.2 of a second now, so it was 0.3, brought it back just a little bit. So this is a tight one so far. Australia with the advantage going out just that little bit quicker, but Canada holding on. Both teams getting coached, you can see from the inside of the track, getting the indication of where they sit for, to start with, the schedule, the predetermined schedule. They think that they can ride a particular time. They'll go around at that tempo. And as they get a bit deeper into the race, then the coach may switch it up and tell them where they exactly sit compared to the team on the other side of the track. And then it's a race to the end.
And this is quite a change-up. In the qualifying, there was 4 seconds between the Australian and the Canadian team. Now, the Australians still have a margin, but it is ever so slight.
Well, it has flipped, and it almost flipped again then. So Canada did get back in front slightly. Now Australia back there, but it is neck and neck as they come through. And they'll be coming around to get 7 laps to go.
And the Canadians have lost Fiona Magendi. They are down to 3 riders. Only 3 need to finish for the time, and sometimes it plays into the tactics. It's more efficient to have one rider burn all their matches and then get out of the way and let the other riders deliver them to the finish. The Australian team looking neater than they did in earlier rounds, but the margin is still very tight. You
say that, but we can see the second rider just a little bit off the wheel. We see the Canadians down to 3.5 of a second is the gap. So it has gone out for Australia A. Australia, remember, A and B, 2 teams in qualifying, but it's the faster, the more dominant team that's out there now. Now the second rider has swung up. They were in a bit of trouble, the Australians, and that's why the gap has come right down. Can they reconcile this now with 3 riders to try and get themselves back in front?
Well, that was Georgia Baker who was pulling the very strong turn on the front, one of the senior members of the team's pursuit squad, and it was Chloe Moran who struggled to hold the wheel. But again, it is not a disaster to be down to 3 riders. It plays into the tactics. It is tight. Canada are now leading the Australians.
Chloe has been ill coming into the competition, so Chloe Moran a little bit under the weather, feeling it. We could see that out there, but now Canada in front, 0.4 of a second. Coming around with 2 laps to go, and it's the Canadians now. So that up and down in speed for the Australians has been detrimental. Can they bring themselves back? They've only got almost 1 lap to go before they can get themselves back in front, and this is the biggest margin we've seen, but it's going the way of Canada. This is the race for the bronze medal. Australia is coming back on this final lap. It's Georgia Baker that leads them down the back straight. She has got them back into the front. It has been a seesaw battle for the bronze medal here in Adelaide, and Australia has got themselves back in front ahead of Canada to claim the bronze. The fastest time they've ridden here today as well, 4:14. Good result, but it was not quite as neat as they were hoping.
It is nearly exactly the same time. In fact, 100th off the time they rode in qualifying. But that was real comeuppance for the Australians, who with just 1 lap to go looked like they were out of contention. Georgia Baker did a sensational time. But can I say, what an exceptional job Canada has done. They qualified this morning in a 4:18, and they just did not look to be on the competitive form that we've come to expect from the Canadians over the years. But wasn't that a great, fantastic race from both teams, pushing all the way to the very line, toing and froing in the lead over those last final laps.
For the Australians, they did have that bobble when Chloe Moran was struggling in second position. So they did have a slow in pace from that situation. They had to fight themselves back into the win. So that was a really courageous performance from them. Race for the gold now, though. New Zealand versus Great Britain. Gold and silver medalists from the World Championships in Glasgow last year. So this will be a fantastic race between these two superpowers of women's team pursuit.
Now, New Zealand rode an absolutely sensational time in the first round this morning. 4:09.259. Absolutely incredible time. 4 seconds off what they qualified in 4:13. Great Britain, very consistent. 4:12.311 in the qualifying, 4:11.438 in the second round. They did have, both teams had a rider change from the first qualifying to the second round. The New Zealanders in the final now, Emily Shearman, Samantha Donnelly, Ali Wollaston and Bryony Botha. Ali Wollaston has been in incredible form already this season. She won the first stage of the Women's Tour Down Under. For Great Britain, we've got Anna Morris, Josie Knight, Eleanor Barker and Katie Archbold. Wonderful to see Eleanor Barker back after becoming a mum not too long ago. Sensational to have her back at this level, coached by the Australian Cameron Meyer.
And her sister Meg was in the previous round. Now Eleanor comes in to race the final. So sisters racing for victory here. New Zealand versus Great Britain. It's the final, the race for gold here in Adelaide. And it will be the second gold medal of the Track Nations Cup after the men's elimination we've seen tonight, with Dylan Bibick from Canada getting the win. The world champions up against the silver medalists. And Canada in a good formation, but look at that. The world champs just a little bit ragged, with Katie Archibald struggling to get onto the back wheel. And it has been a rapid start from them, which is perhaps why, with the New Zealand slightly down.
Well, New Zealand is traditionally the fastest starters in the women's team's pursuit. The first kilometre, it's not unusual for them to go through in around a 1:08, where the other teams are around the 1:09. For Great Britain to start so quickly and in fact be up on New Zealand in that first and second lap, it indicates to me that they're not out there worrying about the time. They're out there to race, and they know that if they can keep level, if they can prevent the New Zealand team from even gaining that advantage from a fast start, they're really in the race.
0.6 of a second now as they go through the first kilometre. 4 laps of the race have been completed, and New Zealand with a strong position at the moment, but Katie Archibald, who is such a powerhouse of women's cycling, about to hit the front for Great Britain. Let's see, with the gap at 1.1 seconds, really starting to go away of New Zealand. What can Katie Archibald do to try and wrestle this back in the favour of Great Britain?
Well, she was originally not going to ride the team pursuit here. She's had a period of injury, but she is an absolute legend in the sport, has her name firmly etched in the history books, and a reputation for being tough as nails.
1.5 is the gap. It's going out. 1.6 now. So this is really interesting to see. The world champions might come undone versus New Zealand.
Well, New Zealand have gone the fastest so far, 4:09.259. The Brits have been consistent, but 4:11 is the fastest time they've recorded in this competition. On paper, Scott, certainly the New Zealand team looks to be in better form, but we have seen the heat start to affect some of the teams in the third round. And that's what we saw with the Australians and the Canadians, such a close competition.
New Zealand down to 3 riders now. 1.4, the gap has come back. It went out to 1.8, the biggest margin that we've seen. Now 1.4, and they're down to 3 riders. The world champions from Great Britain, still 4 riders. Now down to 1.1, so Great Britain starting to come back. They're also down to 3 riders, so 3 versus 3, but Great Britain have lifted the pace somewhat.
Well, Great Britain are known to really rally in the back end. New Zealand are known to start exceptionally fast. It's not overly surprising to see at this point in the race, 1.2 seconds. It's not something for Great Britain to necessarily be too worried about, but the fact that they went out quite fast, quite explosively in order to prevent this blowing out too much. It's going half a lap up, half a lap slightly down, but the New Zealanders certainly maintaining that advantage of 1.5 seconds.
Samantha Donnelly for New Zealand and Anna Morris from Great Britain, the 2 riders that have done their job and pulled up and out of the way. And Anna Morris, fairly new to cycling. She was in triathlon for a long time, and now she's in the national team with Eleanor Barker, who she went to high school with in Cardiff. They didn't race together because Anna wasn't a cyclist. Now they've reunited as world champions. Extraordinary. 1.1 seconds is the margin. Great Britain with 1 lap to go. I think it might be too much to ask of them. They're down to 0.7. They are coming. It was Katie Archibald putting in an incredible turn of pace, but I don't think they've got enough track left to get the better over New Zealand as they get themselves into formation, coming up to the finish line. It will be close, but New Zealand get the win. Down to 0.3 of a second. Great fight back from Great Britain, the world champions, but the silver medalists from the Worlds last year, New Zealand, come away on top in Adelaide.
A bit of an upset for the Brits wearing that resplendent world champions jersey, but what a sensational ride from the New Zealand team. They've posted the fastest time in this competition, a time that would have won them the World Championships last year in Glasgow. So it's not just about the timing of form. They've stepped up a level in an Olympic year.
Well, taking momentum into the season is so important, isn't it? So they've started 2024 in fine form. All the talk last year was about Great Britain being back at the very top, and they haven't been very far away from it, even if they haven't been winning world titles. But New Zealand are coming just at the right time. So great result for New Zealand to get the win here in Adelaide. First Nations Cup of the year, maximum points for them, and that will guarantee them maximum qualification spots for the Olympic team.
A very smooth start for the New Zealand team out of the blocks. Very pleased with their effort. It's always great to see the camaraderie afterwards, rolling around, patting each other on the back. So often cycling is perceived as an individual sport when you look at events like road cycling, but it's a team sport, but we don't often see them competing together so explicitly in teams as we do on the track.
So New Zealand, Great Britain and Australia, gold, silver and bronze in the women's team pursuit here in Adelaide, the first Nations Cup, Track Nations Cup for the UCI, thanks to Tissot timing. And the Adelaide Superdrome looking splendid. Certainly not a new facility, but it is in fantastic form.
They've taken excellent care of it, and it is looking really good.
Well, it's such regular use, both the South Australian Sports Institute and the ARA Australian national team using this as their training base. So it's constantly being used. And they have had to take out the gym, the actual gym training session area, which is normally here in the centre of the track. They took that out just to make enough room. I wouldn't have liked to have been tasked with the job of removing all of the weights.
I did wonder how that happened. That's now the media centre. So the media centre have a nice soft fall under it. But we are going to move to the presentation soon.
So 2 medals have been decided in 2 events, the men's elimination and, as we just saw, the women's team pursuit. Men's team pursuit coming up, the team sprint finals, and the women's elimination, I should say, coming up as well on the program tonight. Scrambling to get the presentation and the dais all sorted and ready to go. Riders still doing their warm-up or warm-down as well for the events they've either done or have coming up. And that's the Australian team compound, as we can see, the right-hand side. Chloe Moran and Maeve Plouffe having a bit of a chat, conversation. Tim Decker, the back of the national coach. Rowan White as well on the right-hand side at the bottom.
You're doing well recognising the back of someone's head. We'll have the awards ceremony for the elimination, and then we'll have the team sprint finals after that, 3rd and 4th, and 1st and 2nd, of course. We're looking for the gold, silver and bronze medal there. It's a sensational night of racing. The crowd has been increasing throughout the night and very vocal. We've got some fantastic crowd members with signs. They're getting very creative with the signs.
And there are plenty of fans as well. We can see people fanning away. It is quite warm in here. It's going to be heating up a little bit more over the weekend as well. And we can go down and actually hear from our our Nations Cup champion, Dylan Bibick, who from Canada, the youngster, who came away with the win in the elimination. We'll see him in the presentation soon, but let's hear from him now.
Yeah, it feels great. A win is always nice. My first Nations Cup win.
Dylan, a great way to start your year. How does that feel?
Feels great. My first Nations Cup win. It's in my mind, it's about time I get a win on the Nations Cup. It's a great feeling.
And you controlled a lot of that race early. Were you confident to let the Australian lead in the last few laps?
Yeah, I'll admit he actually outsmarted me in the last lap, but I just had the power.
Yeah. And how are you enjoying the Adelaide Superdrome?
I actually really like it. It's like a nice, homey feeling. It's hard to explain. Like most velodromes are very industrial, but this is like a nice casual feeling. I love it.
And you'll take this confidence into tomorrow?
Yeah, no, this is definitely a perfect warm-up for tomorrow. Thank you.
He's a young man in a hurry, already a world champion. Silver medalist in this event, the elimination at the World Champs in Glasgow, the Super Worlds, the first ever World Championships with all of the cycling disciplines that come under the UCI banner in the one place at the one time. It was sensational. And he did get the silver medal in the elimination, but a winner here in Adelaide at the UCI Track Nations Cup. And we expect to see some good things from him in the Omnium as well as we go throughout this season, heading towards the Olympic Games in Paris. They're the 3 riders that will be awarded the medals. Mr. Kip Kaufman on the left-hand side, General Manager of Sport and almost everything else at Oz Cycling. And a good crowd in here on the Friday night. Very toasty. It is going to be warming up to just over 30 degrees, 32 degrees over the next couple of days. So it'll be very toasty inside the Superdrome here. Uncomfortable for us as spectators and commentators, but makes it fast for the action for the riders.
It does. On this kind of velodrome, when it is hot and dry, and it's quite dry conditions here in Adelaide, it's perfect for the wood to make it very tough and very fast. The riders prefer those conditions, and they do a lot of pre-cooling to make sure that they can handle it and not overheat.
You might be able to hear the venue announcer in the background, Matthew Poyner, just letting everybody know that the presentations, the first of the 3 days, is about to take place. The men's elimination final, and it was Grant Kuntz in the bronze medal position for the USA, ahead of Blake Agnoletto from Australia and Dylan Bibick from Canada coming away with the gold medal. Good ride from Grant Kuntz as well to come away with a good result for the US.
Fantastic race, the elimination. It's very good to see the Americans back on the podium as well. The women's program's been exceptionally strong over the years, but it's taken some time to rebuild the men's program, and it's a fantastic sign in an Olympic year, which is always where all of the nations do their best to be on the podium.
And the Australian Madison champion, along with Kel O'Brien back in December, and Blake Anguletto already on a podium in an elimination at a Nations Cup, and now backing that up with a second place here. Silver medal to Blake. Great ride for the ARA Australian national team. And a regular name now on podiums at World Championships and Nations Cup, Dylan Bibick from Canada. Such a strong rider, perhaps the one we mentioned the least throughout that elimination race, which is an indication that he's riding tactically well up front and out of the way. The first medals awarded here in the 3-day Track Nations Cup, and it's Canada that lead the way.
A very proud moment for any rider to win in their national colours.
And while cycling traditionally has been a European-dominated sport, Canada, Australia and USA on the podium. The first presentation here in Adelaide. I was going to say all English speakers, but I dare say Dylan speaks French almost as fluently as his
well.
English.
Yes. Well, we're a third of the way through the first night of racing in the finals. We've seen our first gold medal presentation. The Australian having his photo taken by a former Australian Olympian, Steph Morton, her father. So she's stepped away from the velodrome, but her father is still here taking some wonderful photos and part of the community. And next up, we will see the team sprint finals. The women's team sprint finals, and then after that we will be watching the presentations for the women's team's pursuit, which we just saw play out.
Georgia Baker just getting herself ready for her next race. Sophie Edwards, the Australians. There's Maeve Plouffe as well. So getting a good look at all the Australians as they are preparing themselves for some top-notch racing here in Adelaide. This is the home of their training facility, the Adelaide Superdrome, built in 1993. And I was fortunate enough to be at that very first event held to open the velodrome itself. And it has been so well used ever since by this group in particular as the base of the ARA Australian national team.
Well, we've had a really good attendance here by the countries. Saw a lot of fantastic social media posts from the Europeans as they were flying over. They had some wonderful contraptions, technology that they were using to keep their legs fresh on the long haul flight. We're looking at the New Zealand trio lining up for the women's team sprint.
I thought you were going to talk about the social media photos we saw of the internationals with kangaroos and koalas when they got here. So many of them going to the local wildlife park and cuddling koalas and patting kangaroos.
No, Roger Kluger had these fantastic compression tight things on. Sound very old saying tight things on, but they look like some great technology that the athletes use for the long haul. And it's something that the Australian athletes are very accustomed to, taking long flights to get to Europe, to get around the world. To race, the Europeans tend not to have to do it as much, but the UCI have done a great job in getting cycling around the globe.
New Zealand getting themselves ready for the women's team sprint finals. Elise Andrews, Rebecca Petch and Sian Fulton. And they'll be racing against Poland. New Zealand the faster of these two teams in the previous round, so they are ranked in the home straight with Poland in the back straight. Nikola Sibiak, Marlene Karvaka and Ursula Loss.
We've already seen these teams ride earlier this evening. They had qualifying this morning and then both of the round one and then the finals in the evening. The team's pursuit have it the other way around. They do 2 rounds in close proximity in the morning program. the reflective lens on the casque helmet shows quite a picture of the velodrome in front, gives us a bit of an insight of what they're about to face.
In terms of Olympic qualification, the top 8 nations in the team sprints get to go to the Paris Olympic Games. So very important for the teams to get maximum points here. New Zealand versus Poland. This is the race for the bronze medal in the women's team sprint. And a false start. And fortunately, both teams pulling up immediately. So saving some energy, but it will be a slight delay as they come back around, put themselves back into the start gate to get going again. Great view to see who it was. Front straight or back straight. New Zealand or Poland. And I think that was New Zealand, rider number 2.
Well, they've changed the order. They've got the same 3 riders, Petch, Andrews and Fulton. But in round 1, it was Petch that started them off. Elise Andrews will be starting them off this time. 47.401 they rode in that first round. Poland, they rode 47.463. The New Zealanders ever so slightly faster, but a very tight competition expected. And because it is so tight, because we're riding here for a bronze medal, it's not unusual that we see those nerves and those false starts. It's quite a common sight, in fact, in the team sprint. And a false start can't happen from the rider in the gate. It's one of the riders above the track. Sometimes to mitigate that, they push the riders back 10 centimetres. They start them back so that even if they do accelerate, but even if they don't cross that line, they're not allowed to accelerate off the mark noticeably before that start gun fires.
So both bikes now going in. Poland first bike in. New Zealand just putting theirs in. So good view here now of that premature start for New Zealand. It's ever so slight. Just enough. They're quick on the trigger, commissaires.
As are the riders. They have to be on both sides. The commissaires have done a sensational job so far today. They're running a tight ship, but they're not being overly punitive at all. Just keeping the riders in line with the regulations.
Reset. You can see the second rider from Poland, just with the angle when she's come up onto the start line, just had the back wheel slightly higher than the front wheel, so she can get a slight downhill run off the start line. New Zealand second rider, though, dead straight with the boards.
Well, New Zealand beat France in the first round. Poland beat Canada in the first round. They now face off each other with barely a difference, 47.404 versus 47.463 for the Polish team.
Race for the bronze medal, New Zealand versus Poland women's team sprint, and both teams underway this time without any problems, getting themselves quickly into formation. And at the first half lap split, it was Poland with the faster start. New Zealand the faster of these two in the previous round. We expect New Zealand to start fighting back right now as the second rider comes onto the track.
Well, Poland have the fastest start out of these teams that are in the top 4. But the margin, it has already narrowed. The New Zealand team, they are back and nudging just in front.
It's New Zealand leading down the back straight, half a lap to go. Poland trying to fight back. It's a race for the bronze medal. New Zealand versus Poland, and New Zealand coming into the finishing straight just in front to get the win. So bronze medal goes to New Zealand. 47.39 was the time versus 47.68. So 0.3 of a second was the difference in the end, but a good fight back from New Zealand after that fast start from Poland.
And the fastest time in the competition for New Zealand as well. So they've had an improvement each time they've hit the track, which is very impressive. The start order has been changed between rounds, and so it looks to me as though they're tweaking their positions and they're really trying to find out what is the fastest combination. Despite the fact that Poland started exceptionally fast, New Zealand really had the consistency to bring that home. New Zealand we've just seen them come out on top in the women's team's pursuit. They'll now take home a bronze medal in the women's team sprint. It's been a successful competition for our friends across the strait.
Well, Elise Andrews, the current world Keirin champion, she'll be looking at the individual sprint in Keirin coming up as well, expecting to do well there. Now, the race for the gold medal. Great Britain versus China A. Emma Finucane, Katie Marchant and Sophie Capewell up against Li Ying Wang, Yufeng Gao and Shenju Bao.
The fastest time ridden by Great Britain in the competition has been 46.090, but they have by far the fastest starting lap with 18.85 in the last round. They are marginally faster than the Chinese team. China A riding 46.277 in the first round. But we do expect they're both very quick starters. China slightly faster in that first lap. Don't be surprised if we see them go through leading.
The race for gold, women's team sprint underway. It's Great Britain versus China A. And Great Britain slightly faster in the previous round, so they are the favoured team that started in the home straight, but you have to do it when it really counts. And so far, slightly quicker for Great Britain, but a big problem, broken saddle for the second rider from China. Great Britain have still continued on, but the broken seat on the rider from China, incredible that she was able to not go down. She held it upright, incredible skills as we see Great Britain come through to finish off their race, and they'll go through to try and do whatever time they can and see where they compare in the grand scheme of preparation towards the Paris Olympic Games. But that was a close call for China A.
That was, look, it's a sensational ride from the Brits. The competition wasn't what we thought. That was just an absolutely hair-raising moment. The skill of the Chinese riders, all three of them, is absolutely incredible to be able to save that. That was Yufeng Gao, who lost her saddle mid-race and managed to still stay upright and to ride around to safety. What an incredible skill level. Now, a gold medal will go to the British team, so congratulations to them, 46.023. So the fastest time for them for this competition, so well worth persisting for that trio of Finucane, Katie Marchant and Sophie Capewell. But I have to again say, Scott, what an impressive show of skill from those three Chinese ladies who managed to stay safe after such a catastrophic equipment failure.
So we'll have a look back now at the start. Final preparation for these two teams. It was the second rider from China. Great start there from Great Britain. Looking really good as they were going through with their first rider completing that opening lap. And on the other side of the track, though, that's where it all went wrong for China A. Very unfortunate to see that second rider's seat break, but just incredible to keep it upright. They have been looking around the bottom of the track to make sure that all the bits and pieces and parts of the bike have been picked up and they won't be in the way of the next race. There's the culprit, the saddle under the arm. And I wonder if it's a breakage or that it's just come loose. They typically just bolted onto the bike. So they may have come undone. I wouldn't expect that to happen, though. You would expect some sort of breakage to see a seat come off the bike like that.
It is very unusual, but Yufeng Gao, I'll give her a gold medal for skills for holding that up in that moment. And the Brits, well done to continue on in some uncertainty and to post the fastest time of the competition. It's an Olympic year. There's often a bit of competition within the team, Scott, to make sure you get those critical Olympic spots. There'll only be 3 riders that are able to go to the Olympics for both the men and the women. So they are trying different combinations. Now here is our final classification.
And this is what happened earlier today. We see Germany there not classified because they were disqualified. The defending world champions. And Pauline Grabosch, the starter, was distraught after having that issue this morning. Now, we look back to what happened to China A. This is where it all went wrong. And look at that. Bitts was the first rider, sorry, not the second rider. It was my mistake there. It was the first rider, and that's why the second and third riders were just as lucky to not go down.
It was remarkable from all three of them, and it looked as though Gao was riding on the tip of the saddle and it gave way, but it's not unusual to sit very forward on a saddle. So no fault on her part, but an incredible show of skill from all three of the Chinese ladies.
Heart in mouth stuff there, that's for sure.
It was.
And while we do have the presentations coming up for the team pursuit, and it was the Kiwis that come away with the win. Let's hear from our new champions from New Zealand.
Brioni, great way to start your year, and it's a very big year. How does that feel?
Yeah, I think we're super stoked with that. Coming into Olympic year, we're not peaking at the moment, but I think it's a good place to start, and I think we can only go better from here. So we're looking forward to what we can do throughout the rest of the year, leading to the games.
And Ali, what was the strategy today over all three rides?
I think just consistency across the day. We swapped a couple of riders in and out, so just adapting within the rounds and trialing a couple of new things. I think we had a few questions we wanted answered today and did a pretty good job of answering them. So yeah, I think the strategy was, I'd say just consistency across the day.
And this is as close to a home Track Nations Cup as it comes for you girls. Does it feel a little special?
Yeah, super cool. We've got quite a few family members up in the stands at the moment, so we can hear them cheering for us, and it's just awesome having that support here. Yeah.
Big smiles on the faces of the New Zealanders. That was a fantastic win to get the better of the world champions from Great Britain. So that was a really good confidence booster for them as well, going towards the next Nations Cup. Hong Kong is the next one on the program. Then it's Milton in Canada. And then, of course, the focus is on Paris for the Olympic Games. And the first battle has been won by New Zealand over Great Britain. But there are so many factors that are involved. The training schedules, the programs, the heavy workloads that some of these nations are on compared to others. Trying to train through the Nations Cups to make sure they're at their absolute best when they do get to Paris. The wonderful sights of the Superdome here in Adelaide, and looking over the roof towards the city of Adelaide. You can see just in the left-hand side at the top of the screen, beaches down to the right, the Adelaide Hills up to the left. This is the suburb of Jeps Cross, and the hockey stadium is also just by, nearby the velodrome here. Fantastic spot in North Adelaide. And the women's team pursuit presentation not too far from being conducted. The Aussies in the background, bronze medal for them.
And Australian Commissaire Lee Hubbard is either telling them a story or giving them a talking to. It's hard to tell by the faces. Maeve Plouffe doesn't look particularly impressed. Alex Manley's giggling, and Katie Archibald...
full of questions.
Yeah, it looks like she's got a few things on her mind. That's a caption, this kind of shot that one was.
Women's team pursuit presentations.
Now, all of the riders who competed in at least one round of the team's pursuit are able to attend the ceremony and get a medal, and that is why we are seeing 5 riders from both the Australian team, New Zealand team and the British team.
So Australia with the bronze medal. Alex Manley, Maeve Plouffe, Chloe Moran, Georgia Baker, and on the right-hand side, Sophie Edwards. Kip Kaufman doing the presentations.
Well, Sophie Edwards off to ride a road race in a couple of days, Australia's longest race, the Melbourne to Warrnambool. She was the champion there last year, so she wanted to come here and perform for her country, but I think she's also pretty keen to duck off and defend her title there. It's been a big summer for the Australian riders and for any of the foreign riders who've come out early to ride the Tour Down Under and the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race. We're seeing some familiar names from the road racing. Ali Wollaston from New Zealand. She won the first World Tour race of the Women's World Tour this year. And now she's won the first World Cup gold medal for the women's endurance.
Bronze medal for Australia and a silver medal for the world champions from Great Britain. Katie Archibald, Eleanor Barker, her sister Meg Barker, Jessie Knight and Anna Morris. So sisters on the podium and two schoolmates as well, with Morris and Eleanor Barker.
It's a story that couldn't write itself.
Friendship and family affair for Great Britain.
It's great to see Eleanor Barker back. We mentioned earlier she's just become a mother, so it's fantastic to see her passion for the sport reignited and back on the bike.
So a confidence booster, though, for New Zealand, getting the better of the world champions here. So great to see New Zealand on the top step. They were silver medalists at the World Championships last year, but Great Britain and New Zealand were the standout nations in Glasgow at the World Champs. They've reversed the positions here in Adelaide to kick off the start of the season. But New Zealand coming away with the gold medal here at the Track Nations Cup, thanks to Tissot. So great performances from them. Bryony Botha, Ellie Wollaston, Samantha Donnelly, Emily Shearman. We mentioned the road riders, Wollaston getting that first stage win of the Santos Tour Down Under for the women, and we saw Sam Welsford in the team pursuit for Australia as well, winning 3 stages in the Tour Down Under. Filippo Ganna is here, Elia Viviani as well in the men's races. So plenty of the riders that have come out to do the Tour Down Under doing this Track Nations Cup as well, which is fantastic.
Yeah, Josh Tarling, another one for the Brits.
Same for the Australian women's team pursuit team. Georgia Baker, Maeve Plouffe, Alex Manley all racing, Sophie Edwards as well. So New Zealand getting gold in the women's team pursuit ahead of Great Britain, the world champs, and Australia A. Australia with 2 teams representing. Their second team doing some pretty good results as well. And so good for up towards 10 riders from each nation in Australia's example to get some experience at this level. And the training camp that goes into it, it's really good to have depth in numbers when it comes to the team events.
Yeah, it certainly is. And they've been riding exceptionally fast times here. As well, which is always great to see. Conditions and therefore times can vary really quite wildly between velodromes. I think a lot of people, when they're just watching the major events that are always on great facilities and fast tracks, they think that a time is a time on a velodrome. It certainly is not. The conditions can really affect it. Now, I've just ducked into the weather app, Scott. 37 degrees it's expected to be here on Sunday. So I think some of the teams will be a little bit bummed because the track will certainly be lightning fast, and it's beautiful. It looks like an armadillo from the overhead shot.
It is known as the armadillo, absolutely. And sun setting over the beaches here in Adelaide, always fantastic in the evening. You see just the left-hand side there, all the containers that have been brought in for the nations to lock up their equipment each night. And there was a BMX facility on the right-hand side, a series of jumps when they first built this facility. Not an actual BMX track, but just a series of jumps for practice and training. It hasn't been used for a very long time, but the track, it's getting used multiple times a week. So much action inside this velodrome in terms of training for the South Australian Sports Institute, which is run by Brett Aitken, my old teammate, and of course the national team, the ARA Australian national team.
It is a beautiful facility. We're very lucky in Australia to have a lot of world-class velodromes in all of the major cities. Brisbane has hosted the most recent World Cup. Sydney has also hosted some World Cups. It's been 27 years since they've been here in Adelaide. And the locals, well, they don't forget that. They're very happy to have an event of this calibre back. We're looking at the men's team's pursuit now, the very steely glaze of Filippo Ganna, Elia Viviani. He was seated there next to him. Now, Viviani didn't ride the qualifying, and the Italians did not perform to a level that they previously have. They've now swapped him in for round 1, and it was him being swapped in, that squad change, that saw their time improve so significantly that it catapulted them up into now the bronze medal final. They were very unlucky to miss the gold medal final, but these are the opportunities where they learn ahead of the Olympic Games. They try their different squads.
Men's team pursuit, and it's the finals, the race for bronze, Italy versus New Zealand. So you mentioned Elia Viviani and Filippo Ganna. They have Davide Boscaro and Francesco Lamon. Lamon it is that's on the gold bike that's being put into the start position. He's an Olympic champion in the team pursuit alongside Filippo Ganna. Viviani himself, gold medalist in the Omnium from 2016. Marco Villa, the national coach. I've spent many a time racing against Marco Villa. Such a calm and controlled coach. He has done a masterful job of preparing the Italian team to win that gold medal in Tokyo and be so consistent at World Championship level. New Zealand in the back straight. Aaron Gate, Campbell Stewart, Keegan Hornblow and Tom Sexton. Should be a good race between these two. Both teams expecting to medal in Paris at the Olympics this year. The race for bronze, men's team pursuits. Francesco Lamon on that beautiful gold Pinarello bicycle, getting the Italian team up and going. And they had their secret weapon in Filippo Ganna.
Well, the Italians in the first round rode 3:49.190. The New Zealand team 3:49.980. The world record, of course, is held by the Italians, who were the Olympic champions, in 3:42.032. The Italians have improved significantly from the qualifying round. Now, they have gone out exceptionally fast. They're a second up after 2.5 laps, almost at this rate in the same straight as the New Zealand squad. Now, this isn't necessarily what's going to happen in the race in the overall spectrum, but Italy have certainly set out to win. You can win this race in two ways. You can either cross the line first with the quickest time, or if you catch the other team and overlap before the 4 kilometres has expired, that can also win you the race. We have seen in the past teams go out exceptionally fast as though their finish line is only after 2 kilometres and aim to catch the team. I don't think that's what we're looking at here, but certainly Italy are off to a very fast and very solid start, over a second advantage over the New Zealand team.
New Zealand just doing a little bit of effort there to bring it back to 0.9 of a second. Now back out to 1. So it's just going up and down, but only by 1/10 of a second as Filippo Ganna leads the Italians through for his first turn. A couple laps typically by Ganna for his first turn, but it's the second turn as they come towards the end where he really does make a consistent difference to bring them back up to absolute full speed. So Ganna still leads through. 1.2 seconds is the advantage. 13.7 was the indication from Marco Villa to the team. So that was their lap time, 13.7 seconds for a lap.
Well, Filippo Ganna, we know that he's an exceptionally consistent rider. When he's done the world hour record, he has set a very similar pace for an entire hour. He knows his pacing very well. You can pick him because he is the largest frame in that team. The New Zealand team are not losing any more ground, but they're also not gaining any back.
Both teams down to 3 riders now. We saw Davide Boscaro there has swung off from New Zealand, so that leaves Lamon, Viviani who's on the front, and Ganna in second position. New Zealand coming through, and they've got a really tight margin now, down to 0.3 of a second. So New Zealand really fighting well to get back into the mix here as Ganna takes control of the Italian team. He has been the X factor for the Italians over the last 4 or 5 years, but New Zealand holding on, 0.3 of a second with 3 laps remaining.
They're on a very similar time schedule to what they did in the first round. 3:49 from both teams, 49.1 for the Italians, 49.9 from the New Zealanders.
And they'll come around with 500 metres remaining. It's still Filippo Ganna on the front. And you can see the gap just starting to nudge out even more. It's all down to this man, the powerful Italian Filippo Ganna, the world hour record holder. The world record holder in the team pursuit and the individual pursuit. And with 1 lap to go, it will be the Filippo Ganna-led Italian team that will come around to claim the bronze medal here tonight. 1.5 seconds is the margins. They go down the back straight. It was tight for most of the race, but the Italians came through to shine. And it's a bronze medal going to the riders in those beautiful blue skin suits from Italy. But Filippo Ganna does it again. Incredible comeback. When you have a man like him, the question is, can you hang on to his wheel? That's how strong he is at the end.
Well, sensational ride. And when in their qualifying, they rode a 3:53, which I was a bit surprised at. But they have taken, Manilo Moro has gone out, Viviani has come in, and another 3:49 from the Italians, 3:49.825. The New Zealanders, 3:52.073. They left a lot in the first round, the New Zealand team, but it is not a surprise to see the Italian team on the podium. Perhaps a surprise to see them in bronze, but they've come back very well from a falter in that qualifying round.
And with Viviani coming in, one of the factors there is very limited number of spots per nation at the Olympic Games this year. He is the 2016 World Olympic Omnium champion. As we see the preparations just before coming together, band of brothers. Great ride by the Italians, but for Viviani to have another go at riding the Omnium and Madison at the Olympic Games, he really does need to be in the team pursuit, which he hasn't traditionally been a member of in the past. So that's why we're seeing Elia step up and ride for Italy here in the Nations Cup. So good on him. Shows that he really does have sights set again on Paris.
He's a sensational team's pursuit rider, so I'm really pleased to have him out there.
The race for gold and silver now. Australia versus Great Britain. Welsford, O'Brien, Moriarty and Lay. So it's James Moriarty in the start position.
Moriarty didn't ride the qualifying, but he did ride the first round. Rhys Britton, William Tidball, Charlie Tanfield and Joshie Tarling riding for Great Britain. Josh Tarling, the European time trial champion, he will be playing a similar role to what Ghana did in the Italian team.
The final for gold and silver. Australia A versus Great Britain, men's team pursuit. And Moriarty getting the Australians up to speed. Connolly in second position. The other side of the track, as they come through after half a lap, and it's a slightly quicker start for Great Britain. Too early to call. Britain slightly slower in the previous round compared to Australia. And only 1/10 of a second is the difference after one lap of the track completed. Now into formation, getting themselves up to full speed.
Well, both teams are fast starters. Australia has gone through in a 1-2-3 in the earlier rounds for the first kilometre. Great Britain also in a 1-2-3. We're expecting this to be a very tight race from the start. One team not known for being overly faster starters than the other, unlike what we've seen in some of the other head-to-head matches.
0.3 of a second now. Great Britain leading over Australia. 12 laps to go, the first kilometre completes, and a 102.3 for Great Britain, so a very fast first 4 laps.
They are on the same schedule as this morning, 3:48, both of the teams, the Australian and the Brits. Not a lot to set them apart. Both teams needing to consolidate through this midsection. We have seen some team fractures around the 2.5 kilometre mark. 0.3 difference. The Great Britain team are up. They'll come through shortly at 2 kilometre mark. We expect that to be under the 2 minutes.
Josh Tarling leads them down the back straight and has put a little bit of extra distance between themselves for Great Britain and Australia, 0.5 of a second now. So Tarling with a really good turn of pace on the front for Great Britain, just squeezing the pressure onto the Australians. 0.6 now, almost 0.7 of a second. So Great Britain just starting to take a little bit of control here in the final of the men's team pursuit. Tidball now comes through. Both teams still with 4 riders. Well over the halfway point now, and 0.6 of a second down to 0.4, so a good fight back from Australia. This is a tight race between these two powerhouses of track cycling. Such traditional countries in the team pursuit over the years. Great Britain, in more recent times, a little bit more dominant than the Australians, but both teams now down to 3 riders as they get 5 laps to go.
Ooh, and we're head-to-head absolutely now. We'll come around in this next lap to see their 3 kilometre times. Both of the teams in the earlier rounds were around the 3:48.9 mark.
And it's 0.2 of a second. Great Britain still holding on, very close between the two. It was Kell O'Brien that brought them back right equal pegging with Great Britain for Australia. But both teams down to 3, cannot make a mistake now. Third rider is where the time is taken, so they must stay together. And we've seen in team pursuits of the past, pressure points like this. This is where the riders start to really feel the stress with only 3 riders left to race, 2 laps to go.
And the British team, you can see the coaches are urging everything. Give us everything in these final laps. The British team so neat, led by Josh Tarling. The Australians starting to struggle a bit, an early turn.
Sam Welsford was on the front for Australia with a lap to go. He swung up, and I think it's Great Britain now keeping the momentum. Australia tried, they dug deep, but they're just starting to crack right at the very end. Great Britain flare up the track to get to the line with a nice ride from them, 48.4, and Great Britain come away with the gold medal. Really good fight right down to about 2 laps to go, and that's just where the Australians stumbled and Great Britain held on for the win.
Well, that was a sensational ride by the British team. A great fight from the Australians, but Josh Tarling in particular, Scott, he was the one that really drove that final lap.
Fantastic final, 348.4 versus 349.8, and you can see the delight, the British team. Now, this is not the British A squad, I might add. They rode a 345 at the European Championships not long ago, and there's only one of the riders that was in that squad. So this is technically what they would call their B team. So to get the win, and you can see the delight from all of the riders in that British team to come away with the win here at the Track Nations Cup in Adelaide.
Well, they've got options, which is quite exciting, and they are rotating riders through. Tarling, for example, had a big program with Ineos on the road, and so he didn't do the European Championships as he was focusing on the Tour Down Under. And there's different approaches from different nations. We've seen a lot of the really strong teams pursuit countries really pulling the riders back from their World Tour teams to do a little bit of national service to come back to the track. Sometimes it can go very smoothly and they can get on the boards and be beautifully fluid. Other times it can be a little bit tough to go between the two disciplines. Viviani and Ganna, we could say that that's gone fairly smoothly. Josh Tarling is another one who looks to be doing that very well. Sam Welsford, incredible form. He's won 3 World Tour races this season, but he struggled a bit in that final.
The final classification, Great Britain over Australia A, with the Olympic champions Italy in 3rd, New Zealand in 4th. And good to see Japan really stepping up as a team pursuit nation. They've had great individual riders, typically in the sprint events and Keirin events, but in the track endurance over the last couple of seasons, they really have stepped up. So 5th for them here at the Nations Cup is a fantastic result. Not too far until we see another presentation, which will be the women's team sprint.
Well, we have 6 gold medals on offer tonight. We've now seen 4 of them delivered. Great Britain and New Zealand are the 2 most consistent nations from a medal perspective thus far.
And we are going to get to hear from one of our British riders that picked up a gold medal in the women's team sprint. Let's go down to the centre of the track now.
Emma, a really dominant day from the girls. How does it feel?
Yeah, it feels incredible. I don't think we've won a Nations Cup or been in the final for like 11 years for British cycling. So yeah, it's been amazing. Like the girls, we put such a good time down. Like all 3 rides were faster than, like really close to what we've ever done before. So yeah, I'm really proud of the girls and where we're going, and this is like only the start, and especially coming into the Olympic year, yeah, I'm super excited for what's to come, and yeah, it's a really good step forward for us.
Did you see the Chinese starter's saddle had fallen off?
No, I actually had no idea what went on. I just like stuck to my processes and stuck to what I knew because yeah, I just can't control what they did, and we just carried on and went to the line, and at the end I didn't know if like we'd won or like they'd restart, but yeah, it was like such an impressive ride from both teams, and to make it to the final was incredible, and I'm just really proud.
And you've had a really big start to the year, Euros, and then coming down under. How are you feeling? Are you excited by the form?
Yeah, I am. I'm a bit surprised because the main goal this year is obviously the Olympics, and like we're really training hard through this, but it's really nice to see glimpses of like good legs and like good legs as a team. So yeah, I'm hoping to like carry that forward for obviously this Nations Cup in Adelaide and then Hong Kong and then hopefully the Olympic Games. But I'm just taking each race as it comes. Like me and the girls are working really, really hard behind the scenes in Manchester with Scott, our new coach. So yeah, I'm really proud of us and I'm excited to see what we can do.
Thanks, Emma.
Plenty of smiles here in Adelaide, the Superdrome, the first Nations Cup for the UCI, thanks to Tissot for the season 2024. So important, we mention it all the time, just how important these Nations Cups are in the road towards the Paris Olympic Games. Next month, we're off to Hong Kong for the second Nations Cup, and then it's Milton in Canada to wrap things up. And it's immediately at the closure of the Milton World Cup where the allocations for the Olympic Games will be announced and which countries will be getting their spots to race. Multiple ways to qualify for the different events, but very important in the team sprint to do well. If you qualify in the top 8 nations, you also then are allocated a spot in both the Kirin and the sprint, 2 spots in both of those events. So the team sprint becomes very important to be in the top 8. And in the team pursuit, it's the top 10. If you qualify in the top 10, you get to race the team pursuit, and you also then have a team in the Madison and 1 rider in the Omnium for both the men and the women's.
They don't have the same number allocation as you do at a World Championships or a World Cup, where you're virtually unlimited as long as you have the qualifying spots as to alternates, so long as they are entered in the race, and then the final start list needs to be 30 minutes before the commencement of an event. At the Olympics, they'll only have 3 team sprinters, for example. If they want to have 4, they also need to ride another discipline, for example, BMX. Now, this has happened traditionally. Some other countries have played around with different combinations. It's not unusual to see one of the team's pursuit riders also ride on the road to be able to get that extra allocation so that you have 5 teams pursuit riders and an alternate. But all of these qualification numbers, they do get decided over the next couple of months. It's an important time for the individuals and also the federations.
The real challenge with the team pursuit this year is the women's road race is the day before the women's team pursuit qualifying. And if you do well in the road race and finish it and maybe go to drug control and then anti-doping control and then have a late night, then you've got to get yourself to the velodrome the next day for a morning session. Makes it virtually impossible this time around to do the road and the team pursuit as well, which is a real shame because it makes it so tight to select a team. You're only going to have 4 riders allocated for your national team pursuit squad. And I know, look, we've already seen 5 riders used by all 3 nations here on the podium in the women's team pursuit. Yeah,
it can be very tough from a scheduling perspective, and the athletes are very aware of that, and that goes into their training as well. But it also does explain why we're seeing a lot of different combinations used. There are some teams who are absolutely spoilt for choice, but there may be a scenario for Great Britain, for example, where Joshi Tarling rides the individual time trial on the road, and he also rides the team's pursuit on the track and doubles up in that way, therefore using 1 athlete across 2 spots to help the numbers game. At the end of the day, people always ask, why is it so restricted at Olympics? It's actually pretty simple. They need beds for everyone. It's that, it really comes down to that. It's so simple.
And look at that, wonderful views over the Superdrome towards the beaches here, Henley Beach and Glenelg, famous beaches in South Australia. Absolutely wonderful.
We have 2 events left this evening to receive gold medals. We're about to see the presentation for the team sprint for the women. And the medals are presented by Kip Kaufman, who we've seen already present medals, the Executive Manager for Sport for Oz Cycling, who are hosting the Nations Cup here in Adelaide.
Taking out the bronze medal is New Zealand, Elise Andrews, Rebecca Petch and Sian Fulton.
And as we saw in the team's pursuit, you can also have alternates in the team sprint. Quite common practice at World Cups.
Olivia King is the rider that did the qualifying round for New Zealand. So also up on the podium to get her bronze medal. And what a sensational and impactful race we saw from China A. With a broken saddle for the first rider at the end of the first lap, but coming away still with the silver medal.
We have Lai Yinghuan, Yu Fengao, Shan Zhu Bao, and Yulu Zhang, the 4 riders for China. Very unlucky. Gold medal for their skills, silver medal for crossing the line after Great Britain. But a sensational. They've got a lot of talent coming out of China in the sprint. They're very, very savvy riders.
They've had a lot of depth, in particular in women's sprint over the years, team sprint and sprint and Kieran. But Great Britain, they were the best on the night. Emma Finucane, Katie Marchant and Sophie Capewell. And I also had Lauren Bell ride the first round, who hasn't come up for the presentations. But sensational performance for Great Britain. In the end, it was a no contest with that broken bike of China A. But they were the favourites. They were the fastest coming in. Perhaps it would have been a close race, but we'll never know.
No, they continued on to race, even though the Chinese weren't able to continue on. And they did the fastest time of the competition in winning their gold medal.
Great Britain, China, well, China A and New Zealand. Women's team sprint medalists here in Adelaide, the Superdrome, for the UCI Track Nations Cup. Tissot, as always, major partner of the UCI, doing all of the timing at these venues. Fantastic job.
Well, and if you like your statistics, you can jump on Tissot timing on the website and you can follow along with the live results. I often do that when they're overseas competitions. It's good to analyse, and then you can see not just what the overall result was, but how it was earned, who crossed the line fastest in the first lap, and so on and so forth. It often paints a very interesting picture.
We will do back-to-back presentations now as well, with the men's team pursuit up next. You can see in the background them marshalling. The Italians are ready to go. The Australians just coming into the presentation area as well. And still waiting for Great Britain. There's the New Zealand riders, successful tonight in multiple disciplines.
Well, the New Zealand team just missing out, so they don't have a presentation to get ready for. They're able to take a little bit more time to wind down. But Great Britain, they came out on top. Sensational competition that was. It would have been a sensational competition with a number of different teams going head to head. The Italians had a slow start at the beginning of the day in qualifying, but they certainly came home with an exceptional time. The second fastest in the competition.
Well, before the men's team pursuit presentation gets underway, let's hear from at least one of our British champions here tonight.
Josh, super ride, great final. How's it feel?
Oh, super happy, you know. It's always nice to do it with the lads, so it's a nice big team win, and yeah, super happy.
And a big summer for you. How's it feel back on the track?
Ah, it's nice, you know. You don't get to go these kind of speeds, and it's nice to get on the TT bike, not in the snow in Andorra, so super happy.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, mate. Perfect.
And in the overall situation, knowing that there are 10 teams in the team pursuit that qualify for the Olympic Games, there were 10 teams here racing, and a couple of nations didn't come down. So Belgium and the United States were 9th and 10th, getting the minimal number of points here. So they are the two nations that are certainly in danger of missing out. Interestingly, former Olympic champions in the men's team pursuit, Germany, were 8th, so getting Not many points for that position as well. So they'll certainly have to be fighting in the next couple of Nations Cups to try and get themselves the maximum number of quotas for the endurance events. But for now, we look at the other end of the spectrum, the top 3 nations in Great Britain, Italy and Australia.
And once again, we have 2 of the 3 teams, or all 3 teams, pardon me, with a 5-man squad.
And Italy it is with the bronze medal. Eli Viviani, Omnium Olympic champion from 2016 in Rio. Francesco Lamon is the shortest of the riders there. One rides on the gold bike, and he is an Olympic gold medalist in this discipline, the team pursuit. Davide Boscaro, Filippo Ganna, and also riding the earlier rounds was Manilo Moro.
Well, it used to be considered that all the team's pursuiters needed to be a similar height to be able to go fast. But then you went to riders like Filippo Ganna, and well, you don't discount him for his height and his power, do you?
Well, you can throw in Jonathan Milan as well, who's not here with the Italians.
But he's
also
similar
very
frame.
tall. Silver medal goes to Australia. Connor Lay, James Moriarty, Kell O'Brien, Sam Welsford, and Blake Agnoletto, who did the first round.
Well, successful day for Agnoletto. He's now got 2 medals at the World Cup, so well done to him.
He would be very chuffed.
The first rider to do so at this Nations Cup. The women's elimination is coming up soon, so we might see one of the team's pursuit riders backing up. It's a big day for them. It really is a big day when they've got 2 events. The Omnium, of course, is yet to come.
And next in line, Team Great Britain. Josh Tarling, William Tidball, Reese Britton, Charlie Tanfield, and also Josh Charlton did the early round. So all 3 teams again, we're talking about that Olympic qualification of 4 spots for the team pursuit, but all 3 teams here using 5, and we know that there are other riders back at home that can slot into these squads, particularly Great Britain and Italy. It's going to be a very difficult job for the coaching staff to narrow it down to just 4.
It is, and when you look at the Australian, you also look at riders like Lucas Platt, who could slot in there as well as on the road. So some hard decisions to be made in the coaching quarters, but some great performances. They're certainly putting these riders that we can see on screen are certainly putting their hands up for selection.
Well, I know with Sam Welsford's successful start at the Santos Tour Down Under, winning 3 stages, his team boss from Bora Hansgrohe on the road has said, well, we'll have to think about this Olympic Games thing if Sam keeps winning like this. So if he keeps winning, he wants to keep him on the road and winning.
I think you're up for a fight if you try and stop Sam Welsford from riding in Olympic Games. I wouldn't like to be the one delivering that news. I think we will see him on the track in Paris, but certainly what an asset he is, not only to the Australian team, but to his professional team. And in fact, the same can be said for a lot of these riders, exceptionally skilled over a number of disciplines. Speaking of which, the Cyclocross World Championships are this weekend in Czech. So there are a lot of riders who go across disciplines. We see some of our road riders over there. A great win for the Brits, and they were really happy with the effort too. They weren't the favourites after the qualifying in the first round, but they lifted another level and took away the gold.
It's such a wonderful environment being a part of a national team pursuit training squad, and the build up towards it. It really is that band of brothers or band of sisters kind of situation where you one in, all in, and they really do go on a journey together. So when they do come out on top, it's such a special and rewarding experience and feeling for them. That's where it's all happening though, inside the Armadillo, the Superdrome. Absolutely beaming in this evening sun.
As it's affectionately known, the Armadillo. It's beautiful weather here in Adelaide. It's summer in the southern hemisphere. Over 30 degrees today, 37 degrees Celsius we're looking at over the weekend. The track was a bit heavy this morning, and the riders were reporting that it didn't feel particularly fast, but it certainly picked up for this afternoon's session, aided by the fact that it is very dry. Not a lot of humidity at all in Adelaide, a very dry heat.
We can see the riders coming onto the track, and that is the field for the women's elimination race. We've already seen one elimination tonight with the men. Much smaller field it was for the men's race. We have a full capacity field for the women though, so this will be really difficult for them. The ones that want to get all the way down to the end into the medals will have a lot more laps and a lot more elimination laps to try and steer away from. So it will be a real true endurance athlete with the skills and the nous to keep themselves in the hunt that will be chasing those medals at the very end. We do have a very tired-legged Ali Wollaston, perhaps, who has been in the team pursuit, and she's the world champion in this particular discipline. So she'll be out there tonight for New Zealand again, straight off the podium, and then out there preparing for the elimination. And also Jennifer Valente, who is an absolute superstar, four-time team pursuit world champion, Olympic Omnium champion, former world champion in this discipline, and she was second to Ali Wollaston last year in Glasgow in this elimination.
The elimination is the kind of race where when you know how to race it and you continue to use that strategy, you can consistently get good results. But there is that danger when you're sitting mid-pack where you don't want to use too much energy at the beginning of the race. 21 riders means 42 laps. They are eliminated every second lap, and it is based on the rider at the back of the field. It's a newer event on the UCI calendar, and it's an event that suits the dynamic bunch races, the riders who tend to excel in the points race, in the scratch race, in the Omnium. Quite a different physiology from a team's pursuit, but the team's pursuit riders, we have a few lining up tonight. Ali Wollaston will certainly be the most exhausted. She hasn't had much of a break. Jennifer Valente there on screen, an absolute superstar for the American team, and said to be exceptionally good-natured and very tough attitude. Just works hard and is very determined. Her coach, Gary Sutton, former Australian coach and world champion in the points race in 1982, from memory. Certainly has a lot of knowledge to pass on. We've got riders starting at the blue band. Half of the field will start at the fence. There is a prescribed order, so you must start whether you are told to be on the fence or on the blue band. You can't swap that position.
And we are underway. The women's elimination. We saw a thrilling finale in the men's, but a much bigger field, as I say, here for the women's race. This will be a little bit more complicated, but same format. Last rider across the line every second lap will be eliminated once they are determined they're underway, which looks like it's about to happen. There we go. We are underway. The final of the women's elimination race.
And it's very hectic at the back when there are 21 riders.
Jessica Roberts from Great Britain very high on the track, and they'll get the bell this time to signify this is an elimination lap.
Martina Fidanza, the Italian, she's got a great reputation and results sheet on the road, but she's getting herself in a pickle here, going high, and it can change so quickly because it's Michelle Andreas from Switzerland who looked to be on the line.
Portugal,
she ducked under.
Yeah, Maria Martins would be my guess, but we'll
changes
wait.
So quickly. The commissaire's having a wee bit of trouble.
Yep, so we're being told no elimination. We're telling them there is a green flag. So no elimination that time. They could not pick it. I thought it may have been the Portugal rider Martins, who's right at the back now. So maybe it'll be this time if she can't get herself out of that position. But too close to call, and they have to make a quick decision. They can't delay it at all. So if they can't quite determine it so quickly, let them go again. Down the bottom of the track perhaps this time.
Rider 216, Milaki from Greece, has been eliminated.
And you can hear the crowd also. There was a bit of a clash of wheels as they came through. And Maria Martins again in a dangerous position. Malaki now the rider from Greece that has finally backed off. And elimination this time around with Martins trying to come around the outside.
And we have to trust the eye line and the judgment of the commissaires, because sometimes it might seem slightly different to us who may be eliminated. But 2-3-4 Maria Martins from Portugal. We thought she'd be the first to go, Scott. She got herself in a bit of trouble up the back. She's now the second rider eliminated.
Well, while we focus on the last rider across the line, the officials are also trying to see on the inside if there's an infringement. A rider maybe perhaps moving up on the blue band, the light blue band on the inside of the track. You're not allowed to do that. So if that happens, they'll be eliminated, even if they're not the last rider across the line.
Ayana Mizutani from Japan has just had to make a scuffle up the outside because it looks like she might have just gotten in there. Margarita Misurina has been eliminated.
Yeah, Misurina it is, the next one to go. And now looking at the back, and it's Stenberg from Norway in the dangerous position. Fidanza from Italy in front of her. So Anita Stenberg, can she pop up around the outside? Fidanza will be fighting for position, very tight at the top of the track. Ooh, I think it may have been right at the very top.
If you have not yet been eliminated, and it is 2-2-1 Martina Fidanza from Italy, now that is a surprise for her to go out so early. But if you think you may or may not have been eliminated, you need to continue riding, because so quickly you come back around for that bell for the next elimination. Anita Yvonne Stenberg, the Norwegian, who just managed to get in over Fidanza, is finding herself in trouble. It's she and Mizutani from Japan fighting to stay in the race. Mizutani from Japan is the rider eliminated. This feels like a bingo game, Scott. We're looking at these numbers and guessing who it may be. Sometimes it's very tight. The riders we're not mentioning, the ones at the front, if you haven't heard their name, they're riding a good race.
But the one at the back that's in a bad position that had to quickly come around the outside, it was Jennifer Valente. So one of the superstars of women's track cycling, but she's put herself into a good spot now, moved right up around towards the front. Stenberg again in a dangerous position, but she will keep herself in the race. And it's Crichton from Ireland in the green colours, the next one to go.
You cannot afford to break your concentration for even a moment in the elimination race. It's about your mental endurance as much as your physical endurance. Stenberg must be making her team staff a little bit nervous. Every lap she has been the last rider when she's received that bell, but she manages to sneak up a few positions.
And you can see the scramble to try and find some position to move through. And was that Bachakova?
That is Kozieva from Uzbekistan, rider number 248.
She was bouncing out of the saddle down the back straight, just trying to find a hole, somewhere to get through and get out of that last position, unable to do so, and that has allowed Stenberg to again loiter at the back of the peloton.
Well, Stenberg is going to have a mighty acceleration to hold her spot here. As the bunch gets smaller and they're accelerating at the front, it's harder and harder to ride as she has, and I think the time has come. Anita Stenberg from Norway has now been eliminated.
Right up high on the track. Compared to the riders at the bottom of the track, you're riding so much further around the outside every time. If you're at the back, as we saw from Stenberg, she now is realising that she was the last rider out as we go into the next elimination lap.
Well, it's Jessica Roberts and Sarah Van Dam that have been pulling the weight at the front quite significantly, the rider from Great Britain and Belgium. But we are looking at the back of the bunch. Who is going to cross the line in the last position? Oh, it looks like the Spanish rider. Rider number 212, Laura Rodriguez. The Spaniard finds herself in hot water, but in the middle of the bunch right now, not realising she's been eliminated. So the riders around her will now have to make way.
Well, it does come up on the main scoreboard here, which is the end of the front straight. So the rider's name and the national flag does come up, as we saw the commissaire also holding up the national flag.
I think sometimes they don't want to look.
They stay in for too long, they will get in a lot of trouble.
They will.
Next elimination. And that was down in the middle of the track, I think. 2:31, perhaps. Sophie Lewis. Yep, Sophie Lewis in the, what they're calling British Racing Green colours.
How very majestic and traditional. It's a nice kid, actually. Not a great day for Sophie Lewis, though, eliminated. As we're getting down to the second half, Wollaston got herself out of trouble there, moving forward. She's been carrying a bit of fatigue after the team's pursuit, but just showed her class by moving her position up very significantly there. Rider number 207, it looked like, from my end, Sarah Van Dam. I hope...
It was her. Van Dam is out. Van Dam is what she'll say, because 207 is the rider gone. And there was nowhere to go, right in the middle of the peloton at the back there, so that was really tough for her. Nemkova now in the last position, making sure she quickly gets up around the outside. And then it's Lynn Teutenberg from Germany in the dangerous spot now.
Well, Helena Hesters from Belgium has been riding very heavily on the front, but finding herself up the back now.
So Teutenberg gets up around the outside, not a problem for her. Balasaita, I think it may have been.
The Lithuanian rider number 224, Balasaita. Right. From our view, it looked as though she was the one, but they're not eliminating. The green flag is out.
So that's just letting us know that they could not determine who was out that time. I'm pretty sure it was Balasaita.
They weren't listening to They weren't listening to us, Scott, from this view, but it does give them grace. Not so much grace will be offered this lap. Teutenberg having to make the hustle around the top to sneak in.
Andres from Switzerland on the inside is my tip, right down the bottom.
Yeah, 236, Michelle Andres from Switzerland. She has not made the cut.
So Wollaston is still in there. Valente from the United States, third last position.
Helene Hesters from Belgium has been moving quite significantly front to back, front to back. She needs to settle in.
Great move on the very extreme inside there. Not an illegal move, but we did see Nemkova just trying to improve her position. She might be in a little bit of danger next time around.
Teutenberg,
there it is,
number
though.
215. Lilian Teutenberg, the German rider, just caught out in the middle, boxed in a bit, couldn't advance through the middle and wasn't able to get around at the top.
Next elimination lap, and it's Barbara Nemkova. Right down the bottom, but look at that, squeezed herself underneath. Hester's right at the very back, but you can see the rider that's right down on the inside. She knows she only has to pop up over the top here because Nemkova has nowhere to go to try and improve her position. And that's the rider that's gone out this time. You can see down the inside is the easiest place to be. It's the most comfortable.
209 Nemkova.
Yeah, Nemkova it is that's gone. So
now,
down on the bottom of the track, nowhere to go.
It again looked as though Baleste from Lithuania may have been out. She's got a few lives out there tonight.
She's at the back this time as they come into another elimination lap.
7 riders left on the track. This is where the tactics start to change a bit because of the bunch size. Ali Wollaston sitting in 6th. We expect her to duck up the outside as they come up toward the line. And it looks like Balasta from Lithuania may have run out of chances. She is eliminated now, leaving 6 riders left. Jessica Roberts has been the one that has been really setting the pace on the front, the British rider.
And she was almost ran into the fence there by Ali Wollaston. Not intentional. And the next elimination lap now. Roberts it is still again from Great Britain, riding very strong with Valente in 2nd position, but right towards the back. That's where we need to look. Bachakova it is on the inside, Wollaston on the outside. So Ali just putting the shoulder in a little bit. She doesn't have to accelerate too much if she keeps her rider underneath. And it'll be Bachakova that will be the next one gone.
Yep, Bachakova from Slovakia. She is eliminated.
Smart riding from Wollaston then. She didn't have to put in a huge effort to come around. She just needed to make sure that she boxed Bachakova in.
We know she's in great form. We've also seen her in the team's pursuit of course riding, surprising the Brits, the world champions in the event, but she will be carrying some fatigue. She's very smart. Helene Hesters will need to really watch her back here if Wollaston can sneak up the outside.
And Hesters it is. Wollaston has enough in those fatigued legs to come over the top. And Helene Hesters, the next one to go. So 4 riders remain.
It is tight racing, and we can hear the crowd from our commentary position, and they are groaning when it is so tight across the line. The commissaires have had a few difficult calls tonight. Wollaston starting to get caught out though, down to 4 riders. She'll have to move up significantly. Valente pushes the pace. Jessica Roberts holding her on the shoulder.
And Wollaston giving a little bit of gap here to try and get some acceleration down the straight, and it will be enough. So she staves off elimination once again.
Maja
Trucker from Poland that is the next rider to be eliminated.
Well, this top 3 is a top 3 of champions indeed. Jessica Roberts, Jennifer Valente and Ali Wollaston. All 3 exceptionally accomplished in their own right.
So Wollaston again in the dangerous position. She's had a couple of big accelerations to keep herself in this race. We talk about the fatigue in the legs, of course. She had the team pursuits tonight. She must be really tired, but she's trying to come up over the top of Jessica Roberts, and she did it comfortably in the end. Wow, what a strong ride from Ali Wollaston.
Great ride from Wollaston. Now, Valente, her style is to ride from the front, to ride very powerfully. That's what we expect to see here again. Wollaston, she's happy to go along with that because she's a little bit fatigued coming into this final lap.
Valente dives down the track. It's a big gap, but Ali Wollaston stays up nice and high, so she'll get the extra acceleration as she dives down last moment. Valente looks over the shoulder. She has nothing left in the legs, and the New Zealander comfortably comes around the bottom of the track to get another victory. What a brilliant performance it was from Ali Wollaston. Certainly a strong ride, but tactically brilliant as well.
Well, we have not heard the crowd as vocal for Ali Wollaston as for any event tonight. A popular rider and a sensational win. What an incredible summer she has had. She is really raising the stakes.
Started the season well on the road at the Tour Down Under with a stage win.
Our first World Tour winner on the road this year, riding for AG Insurance. The Belgian team, also teammates with an Aussie, Sarah Gigante, they dominated at the Tour Down Under, and the morale coming out of that. There was a fantastic interview with Ali Wollaston where she said just the confidence that it instills and the comfort to know that you're on form and you have performed and you've got nothing to prove to anybody except yourself to go out there and do your best. And certainly she's showing that her best is world best.
Well, Jen Valente, she's been so consistent in Omnium and elimination events and also team pursuits.
Well, she was third at the World Championships in this event and spent a lot of that race, again, on the front, pushing the pace because she's so incredibly strong. Ali Wollaston, when she did swing up there into Baliaste, the Lithuanian, I thought, oh, that shows a bit of fatigue. But Wollaston just kept ticking over. Pretty unlucky, in fact, for Maja Trucker, the Polish rider, to get eliminated there.
I was expecting a slightly closer battle between these two at the very end, but it just shows, we talk about the size of the field as well, it's really difficult to get right to the very end. So many elimination laps that you have to stave off to get to the very end, and Wollaston did it better than anyone, ahead of Jennifer Valente, Jessica Roberts in third place, a good track rider in Tracker in fourth place.
Well, next on after that sensational elimination race, if that doesn't get your blood going, then I'm not sure we can help you. The men's team sprint finals are up now. They will provide the 6th gold medal for the Nations Cup so far. For bronze, we have China A racing Great Britain, and for gold, we have Australia racing Japan. It has been a tight competition from second down, but the Australians with a significant advantage going into these finals.
Race for the bronze medal now, men's team sprints. And we have China A in the back straight, and they're racing against Great Britain in the home straight. The Brits coming up now onto the track. Ed Lowe, Hamish Turnbull and Jack Carlin coming up onto third position for Jack. Hamish in the middle and Ed Lowe in the start gate getting himself ready. Up against Shuai Gao, Yu Xiu and Kui Lui. So Lowe versus Gao to get them up and going. Race for the bronze. And Shuai just staring across the track to see if the British team are ready. China A, faster of these two teams in the previous round. So they are in the home straight, Great Britain in the back straight.
Well, a clean start from both teams. China 42.899 in the first round. Great Britain 43.110. China, the fastest starters in the first round, but Great Britain are off to a great start. Not a lot separates them, 0.2 of a second.
Good start from the Brits. China, though, trying to keep themselves in the hunt. It goes out a little bit more now for Great Britain. A lot of work for China to do to get themselves back into the bronze medal. Not sure if they're going to be able to do it, as we see Jack Carlin leading the British team down the back straight for them. Quarter of a lap to go, and it's a bronze medal that he has in his sights as he comes up to the finish line. And it's a close but comfortable win in the end. 0.3 of a second. Great Britain come away with the bronze in the men's team sprint.
And a much faster time than they've ridden yet today, 42.915 to better their best by 0.2, 43.221 for the Chinese team, who have slowed a bit, shown a little bit of fatigue. The Brits are really rising in this final round across the board. We're seeing some great rides by the Great Britain team, but some sensational representation from China in both the women's team sprint and the men's team sprint. The bronze medal going to Great Britain.
And the race for gold to be decided now. Australia versus Japan. Australia, the world champions 2 years ago, silver medalists last year, and this is the way the Brits got themselves a bronze medal. Really good start from them. They were slower from the previous round compared to China A, but they went out really fast and held on quite strong, with Jack Carlin finishing the job very well. Throw to the line just to make sure. You wouldn't know exactly where he sits. It's so tight. When you're going down the other side of the track, you don't know exactly where you sit compared to your opponents. So you have to give a maximum effort, throw all the way to the line.
Well, the Australians, 42.329 they rode earlier. We have the trio of Lee Hoffman, Matthew Richardson and Matthew Glaetzer. So they are also interchanging riders, the Australians, from the combinations. They've had Thomas Cornish in earlier for the qualifying, but this is the three that have taken them through round one and now into the final. 42.329 is their fastest. Japan, we've got Yoshitaku Nagasako, Kaya Ota and Yuta Obara, and they rode 42.773. 0.4 of a second differential between these teams in the Australians' favour. Let's see if the crowd can lift the Australians. But the Japanese, as continental champions, certainly have a good record.
The former world champions up against the Asian continental champions. Australia versus Japan. It's the final for the men's team sprint. And powerful starts from both of these teams. Lee Hoffman is absolutely incredibly powerful out of the start blocks. He does such a fast first lap. It's difficult for Richardson and Glaetzer to even get onto the back wheel of Lee Hoffman. That's how fast he is. Japan also lightning quick, but it's Australia that lead the way through. 0.2 of a second up after the first lap.
Incredible riding from the Australians, a very motivated team. They've been world champions, they're vice world champions. What can they do here?
And it's Matthew Glaetzer that will lead with an advantage of 0.4 of a second into the final lap. And Australia are absolutely flying around the Adelaide Velodrome here. The crowd are up and about. They can see a victory going to Australia. And Glaetzer gets to the line first. 42.154 and gold to Australia. Silver going to Japan. Fantastic riding from both teams, but the Aussies get the win.
Huge crowd support, sensational riding, a big celebration from the Australian riders. Lee Hoffman, I think half of the crowd belonged to him from the sounds of it. Matthew Richardson and Matthew Glaetzer, the vice world champions, have started the year with a sensational time. But what a ride from the Japanese team as well. 42.750, also the fastest time they have ridden in this competition. It shows that there's a lot of endurance and fitness in these teams, and the Australians, Matthew Glaetzer, also a local from South Australia here, he's really enjoying taking some victory laps.
Well, I'll say that there was much bigger celebrations going on from Lee and Matthew Richardson, but I think that's just because Matty Glaetzer had to do 3 laps. And the others only had to do 1 and 2. He was a little bit more tired than the other 2.
He hadn't quite had time to recover from that. But look at the position of Matthew Glaetzer coming into the finish here. How narrow the handlebars are compared to his shoulders. They have optimised the aerodynamic position of these riders using wind tunnels, using this incredible technology. It really is quite a magnificent sight. This is the overall classification.
Great riding by all of the teams. Australia coming away on top with the gold medal. Presentations not too far away for that, so don't go away. That was the last race of the evening. Japan with the silver medal. Great Britain finishing things off well. They were the 4th fastest going into that final round, but they got themselves up above China A to snatch the bronze medal from them. Mexico, the 12th and last team to come to the start line here today. The Adelaide Superdrome, splendid venue, seen some incredibly fast racing. It's only the first of 3 days of competition here. Really jam-packed program over the next couple of days, as it was today as well. We see so many of these riders back up again tomorrow, the sprint and the Kirin to come for many of these riders that we've just seen in the team sprints. Huge gearing, huge effort, and they've got to do it in 3 days over so many races. It's really tough, as we often see Matthew Richardson just indicating how difficult and how much of an effort he puts in, because he almost collapses after every performance.
Yes, he certainly wears his performance on his sleeve. You can always tell when he's worked hard. It's about 8:30 local time here in Adelaide in the evening. The sun is setting. It is just a magnificent evening outside. A lot of our patrons are now heading out to watch the sunset over the beautiful Armadillo.
Well, we will be endeavouring to get an interview with one of the Australians, if not all of them. But
I'm not sure it'll be Matty Richardson.
Well, that's who I'd
right
go straight
now.
for. I would go straight for Matthew Richardson right now and just stick that microphone right in front to see what you can get out of it.
Oh, I'm not sure that it would be words, to be honest. Maybe some grunting sounds. But it is great to see the athletes just pushing themselves to the absolute limits. They are superhuman.
You can see
these athletes.
You can see why it's nicknamed the Armadillo. The Superdrome here in Adelaide. Splendid views of this arena, and the crowd have been really enjoying some sensationally fast racing, and they also understand the importance of the UCI Track Nations Cups on the road towards Paris. That's Matthew Richardson. He's still trying to compose himself. This is not unusual. If you've seen Matty race before, this is what he does every single time. He tears himself apart in every race whenever he gets on the track. It's extraordinary that he can get himself back up for the other events, the sprints and the Kirins in these competitions, considering how deep he goes every time. And we almost ready, I think, for our first interview, which won't be with Matthew Richardson just yet, but we are going to be able to talk to our elimination champion, Ali Wollaston. Let's go down and have a hear from Ali.
Ali, a very happy winner of the elimination race. How happy are you to be back here again?
Yeah, really happy. I think I was a little bit uncertain after doing 3 rides in the team pursuit today, but yeah, as soon as the race started, I knew I had good legs out there and felt really confident in what I was doing. And yeah, no, I'm just blown away and yeah, really happy with that ride.
And you attacked that last lap. Was that the plan?
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to go full gas in the last lap, but yeah, as soon as Jen kind of went down to the black line, I knew I had to use the track to my advantage. So I just, kept height on the track and, really made a run at the wheel, and it, worked really well in my favour. So I'm really happy.
Thanks, Ali.
Thank you.
Yep.
Austin really did put on a display. A couple of times it looked like the team pursuit fatigue was creeping in, but that was us talking it up. She was absolutely cruising.
And she perhaps playing it up to the others. Now, I've just done a quick little deep dive research, Scott, because we keep referring to this velodrome looking like an armadillo. We don't even have armadillos in Australia. I didn't think we did, but I thought how bizarre that we've built a velodrome to look like an armadillo when we don't even have armadillos.
I think the engineer
Someone
was
a fan
of armadillos.
Yes, indeed, perhaps a Latin American designer.
So 2 presentations to finish off the evening. Still an interview to come with the Australian men's team sprint riders. But the women's elimination presentation is just about to get underway. And that'll be followed by the men's team sprint presentations as well. The fastest cyclists on the planet are the sprinters, both men's and women's. I know we talk about, say, Mark Cavendish with his record at the Tour de France and all the road sprinters. But when you're talking about the fastest cyclists on the planet, these are them. It's the track sprinters that certainly are the quickest.
They truly are, and they put a very good show on for us. It's been a very clean day of racing too. We haven't had any crashes. We've had an exceptional show of skill from the Chinese team, suffering what could have been a horrendous mechanical. All 3 riders managing to finish safely. Maddie Richardson.
Starting to look a little bit more composed, which is
barely.
great.
I don't know if we'd call that too composed. Yeah. They certainly put the energy in, but there is a tight turnaround. They do need to hustle to the presentation. Well, we haven't had any mishaps in the races, apart from that broken saddle with the Chinese team. There was a crash in the training sessions a couple of days ago, and unfortunately one of the Canadian sprinters, female sprinters, did break her collarbone. So she's come all the way out here to race, and then just in an unfortunate mishap in training has not been able to compete in the competition. So wishing her a speedy recovery. Hopefully she'll be okay for at least, if not Hong Kong, but at least for Milton World Cup on home soil. Well, the collarbone is kind of the trademark, isn't it, of every cyclist. Unfortunately, sometimes it's not uncommon for them to break multiple within a season, but we wish all of the riders absolute safety on their journeys.
Day 2 of the competition will have the women's sprint qualifying. And talk about sprinters. Matthew Richardson, one of the world's best. He'll be certainly trying to hunt down Harry Levresen from the Netherlands, who has been the dominant men's sprinter over the last couple of years. But the women's sprint qualifying gets underway tomorrow. The men's Omnium as well. So 4 disciplines within the Omnium event, all bunch races. It has changed configuration over the years. For the men's sprinters, for Richo and the like, it's the Kirin that's on day 2 for them. So plenty of racing with the sprinters coming back out tomorrow, and then those men's Omnium riders as well. So Kirins and sprints and Omnium bunch races on day 2 of the program. Kicks off the same time as it did today, 5:30 p.m. South Australian time, so Central Australian time, 5:30 p.m. 6 p.m. I should say. Sorry, 6 p.m. South Australian time, Central Australian time.
In 3rd place, representing Great Britain, Jessica.
So the elimination presentation now for the women. Jessica Roberts from Great Britain coming away with the bronze medal. Kip Kaufman once again doing the presentations here this evening on the first night of the Tissot UCI Track Nations Cup in Adelaide.
Jessica Roberts rode a very great race. Spent a lot of time on the front just protecting her position.
And Jennifer Valente, such an accomplished track cyclist. Silver medal for her in the elimination this time. She did a lot of work at the front of the peloton, keeping herself away from the elimination zone, but that's also pushing into the wind and costing her a lot of energy.
And Ali Wollaston, what a superstar. She was the first winner of a World Tour road event this year in the women's field at the Tour Down Under. She has now won 2 gold medals at the Track Nations Cup. The Aussie Blake Agnoletto, he's on 2 silver medals, but 2 gold for Ali Wollaston, and what a sensational start to her season.
Big confidence booster for Ali Wollaston and the entire New Zealand team to have so much success early on in 2024. And while the Australians benefit by having a Nations Cup here in Australia, it's not too far for the New Zealanders to go as well. And Ali, also one of those riders that has been here for a couple of weeks, having done the road races, the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race and the Tour Down Under.
The Americans have been here for a number of weeks, enjoying the summer that it is down here in the Southern Hemisphere. One more presentation to go for the men's team sprint. They've recovered enough to at least be able to walk over to the podium.
Most of them have.
Most of them. Let's see if Maddie Richardson can make it. It's wonderful that he wears his effort so openly. It makes it quite entertaining.
It does make me wonder a little bit, though, like how much confidence can his competitors get to see how completely broken he is after every race.
Oh, they'd be very silly to underestimate him. So I think perhaps the first few times they thought, oh, we might get him here. He looks tired. But they learnt very quickly. There's Jennifer Valente walking back to the pits. Ali Wollaston closely behind. Gary Sutton in the background there. Sonia Bertie May has worked with the Australians. She very famously shepherded Anna Mears through her Olympic career. She's working for the American team here because the coach, Gary Sutton, is Australian and lives in Adelaide when he's not over in Colorado.
And Anna Mears, for those around the world that are wondering what she's up to now, she's the chef de mission of the Australian Olympic team. So she's the boss of the Australian Olympic team for 2024, hoping to go all the way through to 2032 in Brisbane. If she does a good job this year, which I'm sure she will.
South Australia like to claim her, but she is a native Queenslander, so I think a home Olympics would be pretty special to do that. Certainly this velodrome has a lot of history. The World Cups back in the day, if we can say that, 27 years ago when the last World Cup was here, had riders like Christian van der Velde was riding the individual pursuit. And I remember watching, you could put a teacup on his back. He was so smooth riding that event. Now, the events have evolved through the Nations Cup, and we've seen some come, seen some go. The Elimination is certainly one of the new events, which is a fantastic one. We'll see. We might have Matty Richardson up on his feet and ready for a chat, Scott.
Possibly,
what do we think?
Possibly. Just waiting to see. I can see the legs of the Australian team sprint riders, and we'll be able to cross down to them pretty soon. But they also, we saw Tom Cornish and Lee Hoffman also snacking as well, because they have got a big program here. So they're quickly trying to get some nutrition and recovery into the body. And here we go. Our 4 riders that we saw throughout the rounds, the Australian team pursuit riders. Let's have a chat to all 4 of them now. They've just won their Nations Cup team sprint to kick off a fantastic start to the season.
Matty Richo, great day. How's it feel on home turf?
Very good, yeah, it feels good. I don't think we could have really asked for more today. We executed basically to the plan that we set before we came in, and I think the win is just the cherry on top.
And, I mean, boys, you were the favourites all day. You backed it up?
Yeah, we did. It's a credit to how well we work as a team, how consistent we can be, and that we can just back each other in to rip another super fast time every time we step out onto the track. So, got an awesome team here and good things to come.
And Lee, 3 big starts, 3 rips. How are you feeling?
Pretty fresh, to be honest. As Matt said, just we all have a team job to play, and that's my job, and we all stuck to the plan. We had ambitious gears today for all 3 of us, and I think we can take away the confidence of pulling out that time at the end.
Thanks, boys.
I do like how they went straight to Matthew Richards for the first question, just to see how fatigued and whether he could talk at all. But all 4 of them, Tom Cornish as well, who was in the 3rd rider position in the first round. Then they brought in Matthew Glaetzer. Now, I know that the gap between Tom and Matthew Glaetzer has really come down. So it's not an absolute given that Matthew Glaetzer becomes the rider that they put in for the finals, because Tom Cornish has really stepped up in the last couple of seasons.
And it is good to see that depth, and they are able to really play around with different combinations. And it's great. Matthew Glaetzer's in the twilight of his career, he's had an incredible impact, not just on Australian sport, but also in world cycling. And he's in a position to be able to mentor the young Australians to help them rebuild, which is sensational.
The final presentation here on the first night of competition, the UCI Track Nations Cup in Adelaide. And the men's team sprint, we heard from all 4 of the Aussies, which was fantastic. And the only team to have 4 riders, the only swap that was made was with the Australians, and it was to their benefit. The success was quite evident. Fantastic performance. Great Britain coming away with the bronze medal. Ed Lowe, Hamish Turnbull and Jack Carlin. And they were, as I mentioned earlier, they were the 4th quickest going into the medal round, but then stepped up to get over the top of China A to pick up the bronze medal. So they're going in the right direction to start the season off. So good performances from them. Just look at these skin suits, the Asian champions from Japan on the left, how low cut their skin suits are. So much to be involved in the aerodynamics of the suits that the riders wear now. It's not just the bikes that they focus on, it's absolutely the clothing. Such a large item that's hitting the wind. And Yoshitaku Nagasako, Kaya Ota and Uta Obaro.
They do look fantastic in their Continental Champions skin suits.
A lot of the Japanese riders coming through the national program, off to the World Championships, to the Olympic Games, and then retiring from international competition and just focusing on the Japanese Kirin scene. So much money to be won and raced for the Japanese riders. But on top of the podium, though, it's the Australians. They used 4 riders: Lee Hoffman, Matthew Glaetzer, Matthew Richardson, and Tom Cornish. So Tom Cornish just getting his medal. Richo, still deep breaths and sighs from him, trying to recover.
But he's upright.
He looks fine. He looks okay, and he's going to be such a prominent rider in the sprint and the Kirin over the next couple of days. Kirin for him tomorrow.
A different stature to the other 3. We discussed that in the team's pursuit. We can see it here. The gold medal for Australia, the silver for Japan, the bronze medal going to Great Britain. Wrapping up what's been a sensational day 1 here at the Track Nations Cup in Adelaide.
Silver medalists from the World Championships last year. They were the gold medalists the year before. There is a big battle going on between the Australian team sprint team and the team from the Netherlands. The Aussies got the better of Japan and Great Britain here, but it's the Dutch team that's not here. They're going to the next 2 World Cups, but they haven't come down here. So that'll be a fantastic battle throughout the season as we head towards the Olympic Games later in the year. But for now, the Aussies are on top. Great ride and a great camaraderie within this group. While there is 4 riders, they're all pushing each other to get the absolute best out of themselves.
A big ride and a big smile, and there's beautiful gold medals. Just rewards for the Australians.
Well, the sights and the sounds of the velodrome here in Adelaide have been fantastic for the first night of competition at the UCI Track Nations Cup. Big schedule on the racing tomorrow. Now, the first part of the program isn't televised. That goes from 6 p.m. Central Australian time onwards. But it's all the qualifying events to kick things off on day 2 in the morning program before we get to the finals, the races for the medals in the evening. The Kirins looking forward to seeing the big boys come out to play and the powerful female sprinters in their sprint competition as well.
And the women's Madison is going to be sensational as well as the men's Omnium. So a really big, wonderful program, but what a great start today has seen.
Absolutely. Looking forward to the next 2 nights of competition. Make sure you tune in for the next 2 days. It's only going to get faster and more furious from here on in. So thank you for joining for the first night of competition here for the Tissot UCI Track Nations Cup here in Adelaide at the Superdrome. We've seen super racing, super performances, and that will only continue over the next 2 days.